Hello and welcome back to the 2012 Web Diplomacy World Cup Final, the longest game of diplomacy ever played. This is part 2 of that series. We're starting in winter 1910, which is where we left off last time, and we're planning to go through to winter 1920 in this video. If you're not familiar with the position, well, I mean, ideally you've watched the last video, but where we left off, France was doing incredibly well, as you can see here. A very good position, but it's not as good as you initially think, because everyone on this board is united against them. Everyone is trying to stop their advance here, and it seems like they've more or less managed that now. Obviously, some players in interesting spots as a result of this, especially the German. But something we didn't pick up on last time, and something that was pointed out to us by one of the players in this game, Goldfinger0303, who's playing the Austrian, is that there is actually a very solid stalemate line from this position, which my fellow commentator, who's with me and who I forgot to introduce, sorry Ezio, hey, has drawn up an amazing image of this.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah, it's a slightly abnormal stalemate. Like, we're used to stalemate lines existing without St. Petersburg, where the East holds Munich and Berlin and a bunch of others, but you can actually add in Sweden, and you can still have a stalemate line with St. Petersburg as well. It's a very pretty one.
Yep, precisely, and to show you how pretty this stalemate line is, we have this MS Paint image right here, which has been lovingly produced by Ezio.
Painstakingly.
We've got Army Moscow support holding St. Petersburg. That protects it against Barents Sea and Norway, which are the enemy units on here. This side will have to take Sweden in order to hold this, but if they can take it with an army or a fleet, they can have Finland support Sweden and Bothnia support Sweden, which is enough to protect it against Norway, Skagerrak, and Denmark, the only 3 units that can attack it. Then you have Berlin support hold Baltic Sea. That's enough to hold Baltic against Denmark and Kiel, which are the 2 units that would be adjacent to Baltic. This stalemate line gives up Kiel, but that's okay because France is still stalemated before 18. And then from there, it's just a normal stalemate line down to the bottom of the map. Munich can be held with supports from Silesia and Bohemia and so on. So yeah, very interesting stalemate line. Not actually one I've come across in practice before, but with these players all discussing everything in public press, I can imagine there was a fair bit of a brainstorming session as to how to put this together, and clearly they came up with it. So well played to them. Okay, so
Yeah, it's one thing to have multiple brains working on a problem for multiple days, as opposed to 2 people in the middle of a commentating session after you've been commentating for a few hours straight.
Yep.
Significant errors like that can be made. But again, even without those territories, France still wasn't soloing. So it's because France can't get Berlin and Munich. So yes, relevant, but not the most relevant issue as long as players realize they can hold in Germany. But shall we get on to the next year? Look at the builds and the moves?
Yep, sure. So let's go ahead here to the spring of 1911. Also, just to quickly remind you, when we left off, our power rankings had France at the top, then Turkey, then Austria. Then we liked the somewhat unusual position of the German, mainly because, you know, Edinburgh is free, there's nothing there to take it, and Moscow is also fairly free. The Russian units are all trapped to the north of it, and if they try and dislodge it, it's just going to get deeper into Russian territory. Then we had Russia, and then poor old Italy just stuck on the stalemate line here. He had been rotating back and forth a little bit between being France's friend and being France's enemy, but had just made sure that he had secured his own 3 provinces and was holding that. So, here we are in spring 1911. Anything stand out to you off the bat, Ezio?
Well, Turkey changed his orders this time. He didn't attack Ionian Sea.
Yes.
He held Ionians.
So, important to note, Turkey another running joke from previously, Turkey had been attacking Ionian constantly. And obviously this doesn't change the result at all because he had never been getting through it.
Yep.
Um,
So, yeah, it sucks to like he's just gonna be doing that forever, right?
yep.
Um, yeah, I mean France is back in Ruhr,
Yep.
but Munich is still fine. There's no danger. Germany got himself into the Baltic Sea, so he can support hold Kiel, and unless there's a fleet in Sweden or a fleet in Helgoland bite, Kiel still is held. Kiel still is held.
Yep.
And so I mean, I don't know. Nothing happened, right?
Is Kiel held here? I think Kiel just goes, right? Because you've got Ruhr, Holland, and Denmark on it versus Baltic, Munich, Kiel, but
Okay, if they
Munich
do
can't
that,
get
then
through.
they lose Sweden, though, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, okay, but that's fair. That's fair. There's potential exchange of hands up here. I mean, because you were discussing the stalemate line, it's important to note that Kiel is not part of that stalemate line, and Sweden is. So trading Kiel for Sweden is relatively natural.
Yes. But really, what this is saying is, this game is kind of grinding to a halt. And looking at this board, I would not expect it to go to, well, even 1915, let alone
Yeah.
2005, right?
Yeah, I could see 1915 or something like that happening because of the scoring, right? This is draw size,
Yep.
right? And so to that end, I could definitely see France just say, "All right, fine, fine, fine. Sorry, sorry, sorry. I'm gonna pull back. I'll let you guys cut Italy and figure out how to cut the German unit." But I could totally see a few more years getting added onto this game just by virtue of the cutting taking some time. But I don't see any significant game changing paths forward
Yep.
for anyone.
It does seem fairly locked up. It's just going to be a trading of supply centers between the players who, well, if France backs off, then yes, some players may be eliminated as a result of that, and there might be a
Yeah, but I could
scuffle.
also
But
see
France,
France just not, and then six-way draw,
yeah.
stalemate, and call it a day.
So not really a ton more to talk about on this. Obviously, Germany's got to be happy with the Russian units still working with them, and Edinburgh managing to bounce out North Sea. There's no threat on that whatsoever at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Edinburgh is still fine. Probably bouncing in North Sea again, if I had to guess.
Yep. So not a ton to talk about
Funny,
here.
the way that they played this with Russia supporting St. Petersburg into Norway, um, there was no way for France to get into the North Sea and keep Norway
Yep.
because they would have needed to have Skagerrak support Norway into the North Sea, and then there's strength two on Norway. So even though Russia could have supported Bothnia into Sweden, this was a little safer for Germany even.
Yep. And so yeah, that does seem. It seems very likely Russia is absolutely playing to keep Germany on side, right? And you would
Yeah.
really want to in this position because your fates are kind of tied together by that unit in Moscow.
Yeah, it would be impressive to see Russia get eliminated, but not Germany because of Moscow. But that seems pretty unlikely to me.
Yep.
But yeah, I want to see some more moves. Let's see if they hold the stalemate line, or because we know this is the longest game, something has to happen, right?
Yep. Something will have to happen. It's also I'm gonna move ahead to fall 1911 here, and as we see some things happening, but not a ton. I will quickly note, as a World Cup game, there is some reason not to draw early because you want to see how the other games are panning out to know what score you need. So even if this did stalemate, there would be a chance that people would just hold out for a little while to check that result. But yes, so look at the fall 1911 moves here, and we see Turkey has gone back to slamming Ionian Sea against Tyrrhenian Sea in frustration.
Yep. We see Italy order hold, and then walk into Trieste.
Yep.
okay, man. The big changes were in the north, right? We did see Ruhr take Kiel, but we saw Bothnia take Sweden and Kiel then take Denmark. So
Yeah.
France snapped down one.
France is, well, not in trouble per se, just that those chances of solos getting further and further away, at least from this at this stage.
Yeah,
I mean, it might
yeah,
actually be beneficial for France to lose centres here because their solo is going to get stalemated anyway. Maybe it causes a bit more of a dynamic
yeah. I
atmosphere where
mean,
people are
you
willing to
can,
stab.
yeah, you can bet that if France just kept pushing, making steady progress, that he would have the stalemate line would just be held,
Yeah.
and he would never get anywhere, and this game would be over, and then they would have gotten to move on with their lives. Could you imagine? They wouldn't have had to play the same game for 3 years.
Yep. Um,
Um,
but I would say
but
things like this move, Venice to Trieste, which is actually quite important because this is a full turn and Austria is not gaining anything anywhere.
yeah, Austria had to disband Ruhr already,
Yep.
so there's no more units that need to get disbanded, but it does mean that Italy is now the same size as Austria.
Yep. And I think, like, importantly, this is actually a huge swing. I have a feeling this probably wasn't discussed with the Austrian for, well, I mean, why would you tell the Austrian you're walking into Trieste? With Austria
Yeah,
having no builds on Vienna, Budapest, and Serbia, it obviously leaves the Austrian in a bit of a position where he's going, okay, please, Italy, I'll do what you say for now. Please just don't take my other home centres. Italy is building in Venice. Whereas if Italy didn't take the stab here, if Italy had let the Austrian keep these centres, Austria has the ability to build Army Trieste, which
yeah,
is pretty horrendous for the Italian in
yeah.
terms of
It's a huge, huge swing.
exactly because both of them
Like,
only have one unit on that border right now. The fleets in Rome and Naples are not are completely pointless for holding and attacking anything right at this moment.
yeah, in this case, Venice taking Trieste is essentially the equivalent of taking an Austrian army and turning it into an Italian army. By moving Venice into Trieste, if Venice doesn't move into Trieste, there's probably an Austrian army there. By moving into Trieste, it's now an Italian army. And there's still an Italian army in Venice because he just rebuilds.
Yep.
It's just unbelievably powerful.
Yep.
But, like, it's still in the awkward part where Austria is kind of important to hold the German stalemate line because he does still need to hold Munich. So I don't think Italy has free reign to try to take Budapest and Serbia and go on this war path against Austria unless he wants to throw to France. Like, it's scary. So it's not nearly as potent as if this was earlier in the game when they were completely at war with each other. Because here, I believe they need to work something out.
Yeah, diplomatically as Italy here, you did want to take Trieste. You're going, okay, yeah, I'm not in a dangerous spot anymore, but now I've got to be doing damage control because if the Austrian starts pulling those units back, suddenly that French solo threat is really, really potent.
Yeah,
And like I would say that's the move on the board. That's the important one this turn. Obviously, Denmark and Sweden getting taken are pretty big as well, but this move right here is the
yeah.
main interesting one.
It's yeah, the war in the north is worth paying significant attention to because that war might give Italy the freedom to play against Austria and actually try to fight this out. Because if Germany and Russia are going to take Norway next turn and are in position to hold Berlin slash potentially retake Kiel, then Austria is significantly less necessary. You don't need Munich anymore if France is getting pushed back in the north.
Yep, that's true. And yeah, so really the southern powers right now, and this is probably true of Turkey's unit in Bulgaria too. They're assessing the northern situation, going, when can I make this move? Can I make this move without, you know, ending the game? And
Yeah.
it's very small calculated moves, like Venice to Trieste with nothing else accompanying it, that
Yeah,
are the
we'll
sign of
carry to
this being
Serbia,
a
right?
high-level game. Yeah. You just push your luck and say, okay, I can do this, but maybe not any more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So let's go ahead to winter here, assuming there is a winter. There is a winter. Oh yeah, of
Yeah.
course there is, because Italy gets
Army
that
Venice,
build.
Army Warsaw.
Army Warsaw down. Russians got to be happy about that. German, maybe less so, but not a lot that you can
Warsaw's
do
going to
about it.
Prussia, man. It's going to help out Berlin.
Okay. I mean, yeah, the German and the Russian seem to be on the same page at the moment. It's still a mighty interesting position for the German here, with Berlin, Denmark, Edinburgh, and Moscow now.
They have 4 centers, and none of them are adjacent to each other.
Yep. And only one home centre, although at least they do still have that home centre. That's
Yeah, that's important.
Nope.
I mean, they have 2 on the North Sea now. They might just migrate over to England.
It's possible. I mean, maybe that was the point of building so many fleets. If they can force their way through. I mean, look at that tasty, undefended northern French territory. Obviously, they can pull Western Mediterranean back, but they're not doing so right now. So, yeah, it could be a good way to survive.
Let's see it.
Let's go ahead to spring 1912. And it's an NMR. Yep.
That's so great.
Although, admittedly, they don't lose any. Well, they will lose Edinburgh, right? Most likely.
There's a guess, isn't there?
Yes, there is actually, because Denmark can cut North Sea, or Denmark can support Edinburgh out. Yeah, but then Skagerrak can.
Yeah, exactly. If Skagerrak or Kiel cuts Denmark, then it can't support Edinburgh out. So Norwegian supports North Sea, and plus a cut, and Edinburgh gets kicked.
Yeah, but in that case, do you just keep Edinburgh on the board because you've retreated it to Clyde and then have a free shot at Liverpool?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No, Edinburgh is the most valuable unit.
Oh, it's
the
spring
German
anyway.
has.
So yeah, of course you would.
Yeah, Fleet Baltic Sea is the one that you're getting rid of, because Army Moscow is still too important.
Yep.
This was a bad time for Germany and NMR. Because if Germany supports himself in the North Sea, then he's not losing Edinburgh, he's keeping his units fine, and he's keeping trust, importantly. At this time, you need to be seen as reliable and to say, I'm not going to lose us this game. But after you NMR, I'm going to cut you out of this stalemate line because I can't trust that you're not going to NMR in the future.
Yep. I think that's reasonable. And, like, this is back in the day when there was no such thing as an excuse missed turn. More recent web diplomacy players will have looked at this and thought, hang on, did he miss, like, 4 turns in a row? No. As if you did not have your orders in at deadline, then they would go through with all holds, always. So, yeah, this is an unfortunate consequence of that sometimes, and I can tell you it is not going to be the last NMR we see in this game.
I mean, if the game goes on for 3 years, what were the phase lengths? 24 hours?
I think they were 48, but I'm not certain.
48 hours? I mean, I suppose over a 3-year period, there are going to be some sequences of 2 days where I couldn't check diplomacy. I don't know, man. That's
Actually,
a big ass.
I should probably check this real quick to make sure I've got my facts right. No, not that. I can cut this out in the edit.
Yeah, but we're not going to edit this. Don't lie to yourself. We know that we're not editing these videos.
Yep,
Way
it was.
too many.
It was indeed. Oh, did I just... Yeah. There we go. 2 days per phase. 48 hours. Oh, wait. Sure. No, I do have to edit this because this contains the final board state.
Oh, they can see it on your screen?
Okay, yes. I should probably have opened that in a new tab.
Yeah, new tab or new window or whatever. Alright, fine. We gotta edit that.
Okay, it's fine. I will just blur out that section.
Yeah, just blur out the screen.
It's like the
I'm
easiest
gonna use unblurring effects, meme. They're gonna figure out what the board looks like.
Alright, so aside from the German NMR here, which is obviously unfortunate, actually the German NMR doesn't lose them Berlin. They do just bounce that.
Austria's doing his job.
And yeah, we see the Italian pushing Trieste forward, which is
Yep,
presumably
back
what
to
the
the
Austrian
stalemate
demanded.
line. Yeah, and Bohemia was there to cover Galicia, so Warsaw couldn't make any moves against the Austrian home centers. And Bulgaria, of course, stayed tight in Bulgaria, so
Yep. Well, there you go.
France is still stalemated.
So there is very minimal movement with like Bohemia to Galicia and so on, just to protect themselves.
Yeah,
But for the
and then
most part,
France.
it's still safe.
Yeah, and then France, of course, pulled back in the north.
Yep.
Russia is into Norway with the army, notably.
Yep.
So that is less pressure in the north. This is why Edinburgh can be captured. So yeah, I don't know. Not much happened.
So yeah, with the Russian gaining another SC here as the German, do you move Moscow to Warsaw or Sevastopol? Do you like make sure that they don't get that build?
Probably. I think
Because
you don't want Russia getting another build here.
if they do pick up another build here, you're out of Moscow, right? There's no way they're gonna let you stay there forever.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, Warsaw making it into Ukraine means that Warsaw gets to cover Sevastopol.
Yep.
So, which is the hardest center for Germany to take back, with the best chances of retreating into Armenia and staying alive in the Turkish home centers. So, yeah, this is going to be tough.
This is not looking good for the German. That's
Yeah, NMRs tend to make your position look worse.
yeah, who would have known?
I've certainly never NMR'd.
Oh man. Alright, so
I've played too many live games for that to be. Oh my god.
shall we move forward to
Yeah.
spring 1912? Fall 1912, here we go. And there's the second NMR.
Wow. I mean, honestly, first NMRing is fine.
Yep. So we did say NMRs tend to make your position worse. It is true in this case, especially in losing the unit in Kiel that gets blown up. But importantly to note, like for France, that's okay because France going down in SCs is actually like helping the rest of the board mobilize itself and start fighting against each other potentially.
Yeah, it's this weird situation where France's position was too good to the point where it stopped him from progressing.
Yep.
And if his position gets worse, he can make progress again, and maybe he progresses in a way where he can get beyond 17 centers. Unlikely, and if the rest of the board plays with that in mind, it's very unlikely, but who knows? This is, yeah.
So it's still not great to see.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, Germany is +2 with only Berlin open. So.
Yep. Also important to note though. Oh wait. So there are two important things to note on this board. I'll leave the interesting one till afterwards. The one I wanted to point out is this is exactly why Italy is not ordering support for Ionian to Tyrrhenian Sea here, right? Because if Turkey does make enough progress here, if Turkey does get into Tunis, suddenly Italy's position is much, much worse. Because Turkey can start using those fleets against the Italians and start taking them out if France backs off. If the Turk had made it into Tyrrhenian Sea here, I think there's a decent call for the French player to back off a bit and say, okay, go ahead, take out Italy.
Yeah, it's frustrating that for the French player that Turkey has so many fleets here, because Turkey is going to be able to hold the line basically as well as the Italian is.
Yeah.
It's gonna be difficult. That said, there will be a few weaknesses. Specifically, I believe in Venice is going to be the biggest weakness because Turkey has only one army, available at the moment, and it can't even get into Venice. And presumably, if Italy sees Turkey move into Adriatic Sea or make a move to eliminate Italy, then the Italian player is going to say, "All right, France, Venice is yours. My army in Tyrolia will cut Bohemia and let you into Munich," which is a less severe threat now that France isn't in Kiel. Um,
Yeah.
all right, yeah.
But yes, it's still fairly important, I think. Like, I think it's the right call for Italy to just be holding these units instead of, like, needlessly putting the supports in and trying to force Turkey forwards. You don't want Turkey all around you.
Absolutely.
So, yes, there's a lot of stuff in the north, but the thing I did want to look at here, quickly, Germany did go to Warsaw. And it is on a full turn, and Russia did not tap Moscow. So, no build for the Russian. And
Yeah.
astonishingly, 2 builds for the German, but only 1 center to build it in.
Yeah.
Wow. If you told me last turn that Germany would be on 6 centers this turn, I would not have believed you.
Yeah. I would have assumed it was Sweden plus one of Warsaw or Sev, and been very confused why and how. And then Edinburgh didn't get captured? Yeah, no. All right.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, Germany was really thrown a lifeline by this French NMR here.
Saved him after his own, right?
Yep. So, is there anything else to talk about in this phase? These have been fairly low
Fleet
movement
Berlin.
phase.
Fleet Berlin.
Yes.
Fleet Berlin.
What will the build be? If it's another fleet, I swear.
I think it's supposed to be another fleet. I think, objectively, you want to have nothing but fleets, and then your one army in Moscow just running around doing hell. But you just need to be exclusively in on fleets, and you really should try to just get complete dominance in the north. That's... I think that's his best line to survive.
I'm not... I don't know. It feels so wrong to build a 4th fleet when you have 1 army. This is...
Yeah, but that's because you're trying... That's because you're thinking in a normal game where England is on the board, and you're potentially going to interact with Austria in a negative fashion. But in this board, I think... Yeah, I think this is a different board than that.
Yep. I mean,
what's the second army going to do?
I guess try and get Munich back, but there's no way it's going to, so you're probably right. It just feels so wrong. It's like
the fleet.
The idea is, yeah, well, even Fleet Berlin is a really terrible place to put a fleet, just generally, because now it's trapped behind Baltic and Kiel.
I don't disagree with that. I wish I could build it. I wish I could build it in Huggle and Bite, but
yep,
it is what it is.
But yeah, no, the idea there is actually sound. If you're fighting for survival as a tiny power, would you rather be fighting in the middle of this giant ball of armies here that is going to crush you at some point, or in this nice empty England over here where there's only 3 French fleets total defending that area?
There's 3 French fleets and 1 Russian fleet. If you build a 4th fleet, you have as many fleets in the north as everyone else combined. Western Med is an honorary northern fleet, because it's 2 moves away. But 2 moves away is 2 moves away, and if you build the fleet in Berlin this year, then you're +2. Remember, you're getting another build next year, assuming Moscow or Warsaw doesn't get taken. But if you get a 5th fleet, you're invincible.
Yep, but important to note, I do think that only applies if you're only looking for survival and not to grow, because there's no way you're getting your home supply center. You're keeping your home supply centers if you go with that plan.
I don't necessarily agree, because you've already got Kiel, and Kiel is bordered by Huggle and Bite, Baltic Sea, and Denmark, and Berlin is bordered by Baltic Sea and Kiel. Those 2 home centers can reasonably be held with exclusively fleets. Held and taken, for that matter.
Yeah, but if you keep all your units around there, where are you going to get your next builds from?
Liverpool?
Yeah, but you get knocked out of Edinburgh in the process, so it's like...
Yeah, but you're already +1, remember? You only need to stay
Yeah,
even.
that's true. Yeah, man. It's an interesting spot.
Fleets. All fleets all day.
Well, let's go ahead and see whether he did or not.
No!
Nope,
I'm
that is
sad.
an army. The fleet dream is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what the plan is from here. What are you trying to do as Germany?
uh, I think you just, like... I think you really want Munich back at this point, right? You're hoping that maybe Italy and Turkey stab Austria and Austria has to disband on your line, but then actually France gets Munich, so it's...
You only have the one army. You can't
Yeah.
hold Munich.
Well, if you can sneak into Munich or get an army build from somewhere, you can start
Yeah,
getting the pressure
if you
back.
can build while taking Munich at the same time, then okay.
Yep. Or like
You
build
can,
in if you manage to build another army and slip this army into Kiel or into Cilicia.
sure, that could work too.
Oh, maybe it's to pull Warsaw into Cilicia and then prep for taking Munich. But then you're abandoning your Russian centers, so that's...
I mean, the Russian centers aren't really yours anyways. That one army is trying to hold 2 docks, which doesn't really last.
Yep. Unless Russia wants it to.
Yeah, and I mean, Russia's okay with this, but again, I think you want to make Russia's life better by just building all these fleets in the world. And then, I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, 3 fleets still. So there's
Yeah,
still...
3 fleets, there's 3 fleets, right? He's not completely hopeless here. And, like, again, Fleet Berlin does take a while to be useful, right?
Yep.
Even if you move Kiel into Helgoland and Berlin into Kiel, then it's, like... I mean, yeah, then it gets to Denmark, and that's the point. It's just...
Yeah,
I
so
want to see some moves.
we have actually talked a ton about Army Berlin. There's one other adjustment on this board, and I actually think it is quite important. Army Holland coming off.
Sure.
Because now that only leaves two French armies on that front, which needs 3 to hold it. They're going to have to either pull a fleet down or potentially abandon that front, or at least move it back to Belgium, which could give the German leeway to get that extra build they need.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. Okay, so shall we move ahead to the spring of 1913?
Let's do it.
Okay, and here's the movement. That's
All
a
right.
lot of movement.
Wow, an active board? It's been so long! Dynamic changes on the map.
Yep, so to very quickly highlight them, we see France pulling back out of the north completely, giving up on Scandinavia. We see Russia taking Moscow, which is the unimportant part of this movement, I think. The important part is Ukraine moving back into Romania and Galicia moving into Budapest despite having support to go into Romania from the Turkey pulling back into Constantinople, presumably to attack the Russian, given the it happening at the same time as the support here. And at the same time, Italy rotates everything back to face the Turk. Plus, Germany is getting into Holland.
With a fleet, notably.
Yep. Wow.
Can't support an attack in Terror.
That's true. So it might have been agreed. But,
Might not have been.
yeah.
Given the disband in Holland, I'm inclined to say that France was just fine with it. I'm worried about Germany keeping this fleet in Edinburgh. This turn specifically, I really wanted to see him move it into Clyde, because then he can take Liverpool, and it's okay. He's going to be on 1 anyways. There's going to be a center from England. But now if France takes Edinburgh from him, he doesn't retreat into Liverpool. That's a fleet.
Yep. This is, yeah, it would have been a good move to go to Clyde. I think that's just...
Maybe Yorkshire as well, because then you can either go to London... You can tap London and North Sea. Oh no, in this case it wouldn't have worked, because North Sea... Yeah.
I think this French move set is specifically to prevent the move to Yorkshire being a dangerous one, right? So Liverpool
Yeah,
is the place you kind of want to go and sit to make sure you maintain a centre. Uh, but if Germany is picking up Holland, maybe it won't be as big an issue as we think.
maybe.
Because, well, they are losing Moscow as well. But they are +1 overall, so I think they keep all of their units.
We need another build. We talked about
Yep.
this.
And where's
Well,
that build
it's
going to come
okay.
from?
Nowhere. It's
Well,
not happening.
as France, do you let Germany pick up a build to try and stir up more tension between Germany and Austria? Yeah, probably
Possibly.
not, because at least I probably wouldn't, because you're strengthening Germany's home, and if Germany's home is owned entirely by Germany, that's probably worse for you, right?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty difficult to break that stalemate. Germany can hold pretty well by himself.
Yep. But I'd say that's the relatively uninteresting side of the board. If we look down here,
Yeah, I've just been staring at Germany this whole time.
yep.
The South, I don't even know, man. Like, is the South really that interesting?
I mean,
Like, Italy is just going to tell Turkey, hey, Turkey, if you do anything stupid, we're going to let France into Ionian. Do you want to let France into Ionian?
yeah, obviously you don't, but like what this says to me is a huge argument in chat or something along those lines. Turkey supporting Austria to Romania and moving back against the Russian. Russia pulling everything down to say, okay, no, don't go there. Austria not taking that support, and Italy rotating back to try and stop anything from being,
The
well,
public
from,
press in this phase was crazy, I'm sure.
yes. So hey, Goldfinger, if you're watching this one and you have a snippet that will tell us how this went down, feel free to post it in the comments. I think everyone would appreciate it.
Yeah, here's where web diplomacy's text interface is particularly bad, and that when I look back on games, I only see the times and days of when everything was posted. It doesn't have the phase tagged.
Right. I think you can see the phase. I can't remember if you go back into the like. Well, no, it's been forever since I actually checked the backlog of messages, so I'd need to check that. But hey, hopefully Goldie can pull something. Come on, Goldie, we believe in you. But what will this result in going forward? It's the interesting question here. Galicia and Budapest both being Austrian units now does give him some potential to go for the Russian. No, it doesn't, because the Russian retreats into Serbia. So, what happens here? Everyone says, hey, Turkey, stop doing this stuff, you're making it more likely that France will solo, and then they all sort of stand there and hope that Turkey stops, because no one can actually attack Turkey right now.
Yeah, yeah. This Turkish position is going to be not breakable, not realistically anyway.
Yep. But then again, you're not as scared about the French solo anymore because Germany just got into Holland and the entirety of Scandinavia is secure. So maybe it does just turn into a massive fight in the south.
Maybe, and then we'll see how long France can sit on his hands and wait for his moment.
Yep.
It's tough to sit on your hands and wait while you're actively losing centers.
Yep. For sure. But sometimes it is the right move.
Absolutely, man.
Okay. So shall we see how this develops here? Fall
Yeah.
1913.
It's also easy to sit on your hands in NMR.
Okay. What have you just seen?
Austria walking into Berlin. So rude, man.
Oh man. That is actually, like, that's a really good play from the Austrian, right? Because you kind of want that extra build with. It's either that or pull Bohemia back from the line. And you want to keep Munich as your, center, so you have some
Absolutely. And
influence.
because Germany built that army in Kiel, there was a severe risk that if Germany builds army in Berlin, Warsaw goes back into Silesia, and then Munich is lost. And you, as Austria, are looking very cuttable. But now, no, not really.
Yeah, it looks beautiful, and suddenly Germany's in a really horrible position again, right?
Again,
They're still up. No, they're not even up one build, but they
I
only
lost
have
one.
one center anyway, and it's really vulnerable to these two Austrian units.
That one home center, yeah, definitely. It's Germany looks very exposed.
Yep. Uh, and elsewhere, well, the Austrian does have a bit of trouble to contend with because this Italian rotated back, but in his rotation back, instead of sending his Italian army up to Tyrolia from Venice, he sent it into Trieste, which does cause the Austrians some problems, especially if that take of Berlin wasn't agreed upon. Which I can't imagine he would have mentioned that in public press.
Yeah, and for Germany with Fleet Baltic Sea, I assume he would have just tapped Berlin, bounced it out, and then built.
Yep.
Because Baltic to Denmark is not less important than going into Berlin.
Yeah. Because you're expecting these two units to take Edinburgh. If they don't, you're happy.
Yeah, there's no reason to cover Denmark. I mean, potentially Sweden to Denmark, but not. It's not gaining you a center.
Yeah, Russia's
All
already
right,
gaining
cool.
Moscow. Yeah, but apart from that, in the south, it does look like Turkey's been talked down from the edge here. They're going to from Constantinople back to Aegean, not into Black Sea. So
Yeah, probably the big deal was Galicia Galicia
Budapest.
not going to Romania last turn.
Yep. Because this means Russia gets a build, and if they put that build as Fleet Sevastopol, or Army Sevastopol would be even worse, actually, then you're in trouble.
Yep. All right, let's see what Russia does build.
Okay.
Presumably, it's still Army Sev.
It is
Fleets in
still
St. Pete.
Army Sevastopol, which, as the Turk, you've got to be concerned about, especially if you just stabbed them.
After you just supported Austria and Romania and moved into Constantinople, you're like,
I
yeah.
feel like you convoy Aegean to Smyrna here. Not Aegean to Smyrna. You convoy Bulgaria to Smyrna, backfill
Aegean.
with Greece, and make sure that you're protected against this walking into Ankara business that's about to happen. You could just walk back into Con, but it's not
Bulgaria
as
to
fancy.
Con, yeah, it's very similar. Smyrna is, of course, better than Constantinople for defending because it can move into Armenia itself and try to bounce armies out. But if there's already an army in Armenia, there's not much difference between Con and Smyrna.
Yep, that's true. And
We do see the Army Vienna from the Austrian, and the French disband is a fleet in the south. Perfectly
yeah,
reasonable. There's no
that
pressure on the south.
it was either that or English Channel here, I think, and like Leon makes sense. The Italian has shown over and over again they're not supporting the Turk into Tyrrhenian Sea, so you really don't need four fleets on there.
Yeah, and to make to that end, I think France can actually pull Western Med into the north.
I think so too. And like France has taken off so much from the north already, which I think was a mistake. I think they should have disbanded one of these fleets earlier. Although maybe it wasn't a mistake in that they've kind of ended up at a much decreased power level now, so it's making this stuff happen.
Yeah, I believe France would have been significantly stronger if he had disbanded a southern fleet earlier. His army in Holland was essentially a free unit because it was sitting on a supply center, stopping Germany from taking it. By taking Holland off the board, Germany walked into Holland, and now France is taking something else off the board.
Yep.
So it's like he could have just kept Holland, or in this case, he chose not to. And I mean, okay.
Yeah. So we forgot to do power rankings last year. Do you want to lead them off this year instead, or shall we wait
Yeah, we
until?
can reduce the frequency with which you do power rankings in this game, just because there's going to be so much They're going to be so similar so much.
Yep.
I mean, obviously France is still number one,
Yep.
like by a lot, and then Russia is pretty clearly number two. Building is gained Scandinavia, relatively safe. Progress being made,
I think
and
that's
then
fair. The it's interesting to think, like, is the Turkish position so bad because of Sevastopol and it drops below anyone else, or is it?
no, he's still Turkey.
Yeah. So he just drops a third, not any further than that, right?
Yeah,
And
and honestly, I could still see him being ahead of Russia. It looks difficult for Turkey to actually beat Russia here, so I think it's fair to put him below.
yeah, I don't think the Russian is going to get attacked by anyone in the near future.
Yeah,
Looking at this board, whereas
I don't think Turkey is either.
if the Turkey is going to get attacked, they're going to be on the back foot, and it's going to be against Russia, right? It's just going to be a war between the two of them.
Yeah, but to that end, Turkey's the one with the fleets and is the one who can take the Black Sea,
Yeah, that's true.
and so it's really really hard to win the Turk versus Russia war without the Black Sea.
Yeah, if you expected Russia to attack Turkey here, they probably would have built fleet Sevastopol, right? Rather than army. Despite army usually being quite good for going to Armenia and taking the supply centers, being in Black Sea here would be amazing.
Yeah, the advantage to Army Sev is the element of surprise, because I'm sure there's some way you can talk Turkey down and be like, yeah, I don't want to go to war with you. We're gonna be fine. Um, I just let's do some nonsense. It's awkward because normally I would do something with Bulgaria that is either supporting me into somewhere or having it go into Serbia, because then I can move into Armenia and then he won't move it back. But in this case, I think there's nothing you can tell Bulgaria to do that's productive other than move back into Constantinople.
That makes sense. Right, so discounting the Russia-Turkey thing, we'll put Russia above Turkey here just because of these points,
He's
although
got
it
an
is
extra center.
debatable. Yep, centers always make it. But these last three are actually quite difficult to place, I think.
Italy is still last.
Are you sure? Because the Austrian are so spread out here.
Austria's on the stalemate line with two centers and has still been built a unit last turn.
Yep, that's true. And I mean,
Italy has four centers. Germany and Austria have five.
if Austria had not taken Berlin here, I think he would have been clear last. Like,
I agree.
beyond
I
clear
completely
last.
agree. I completely agree. If he did not take Berlin, he would be the best bet to get eliminated.
But this one move has changed things up so much. And
Yeah.
it would have pretty clearly put Germany above everyone else, I think, or above this little, like, end
Yeah,
block.
above these trios. Maybe even above Turkey. Maybe, but
Maybe.
probably not.
Probably,
Probably
not.
not.
But there
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
potential for it.
And like, if he gets into Berlin, right, this world is completely different. But instead, we just
Yeah,
I
so...
don't know, man. I think that Austria is looking significantly better than Italy. Right, it's reasonably likely that he gets into Tyrolia and then looks to take Trieste next turn. Like,
Yeah?
I don't know. I don't see how this Italian position holds.
Yeah, if Vienna goes to Tyrolia and Glacier into Vienna, then yes, the Italian is in serious trouble. With the two armies against the one. But it would require the Austrian to basically say, Serbia's a goner.
Well, I would do something different, actually. I would literally go Munich to Tyrolia, Berlin to Munich, Budapest to Serbia, Vienna supports Munich to Tyrolia.
That makes much more sense than my line of attack, and this is why you are playing... yeah, why you are the expert that we have on the show.
Yeah, expert. Can't see a stalemate line that's clear as day, guaranteed. Of course. Yeah, that's the expert I want to have on my shows. I want him defending against me, actually.
But yes, so that would give, like, an excellent position around the Italian SCs. It does say, okay, these takes in Germany are pretty temporary, right? There's no way you're keeping the two of them if you move down to Tyrolia.
I agree. In the long run, definitely. But the point is, we can cut Italy now. We can do it. France has slowed himself down too much. We can get Italy off of this board, and if it's not Italy, I'm going to be going pretty soon. That's what I'm telling myself as Austria.
Yep.
And so I want that to happen. Also, Serbia is nice in that I can affect the Russia-Turkey war if it breaks out. So I kind of want a unit there anyways, but mostly, yeah, let's deal with Trieste.
Okay, so
So
with all this in mind, do we put the German ahead of the Austrian or behind the Austrian on power rankings?
Ahead. I think he's still harder to cut.
I think that's probably where I'd put him as well. Just the fact that he's about to get all of his home supply centers back, and like despite being sandwiched between these two seemingly quite large powers, he's got a really nice spot. Once he gets Berlin and Munich back, he's got his fleet in Edinburgh, which is pretty difficult to deal with for France. And if France tries to deal with it, they're pulling away from the German homeland. The only armies that France has, 2 armies isn't enough to charge in here, and almost all of these Russian units are, well, they're fairly useless for actually going after the German SCs. So, yeah, I think this is our new power rankings, assuming I can align this properly. That is not very well aligned, but well. So we have France in first place, Russia in second, Turkey third, Germany fourth, Austria fifth, and then still in last place for poor old Mugis in Italy, although it has improved slightly since his last thing, maybe. In that he got 1 extra centre.
Yep.
So,
let's look.
Let's go ahead to spring 1914 here. And no move to Tyrolia.
Yeah, nobody moved. There was support in the Tyrolia. A very clean play there from Italy.
Yep.
Stopping that move.
Italy basically trying to force the French units forward here, like rotating round to Apulia and Naples as well as supporting into Tyrolia. It's using France as a threat, maybe.
Yeah, and as defensive tool here. This is very... The way that Austria played this, by supporting Vienna into Budapest, rather than Galicia into Budapest, means that Trieste is not in any danger.
That's true.
There's still only 2 onto Trieste, and in fact, there's 3 on Romania. But only 3 because the Army Bulgaria left and Fleet Bulgaria South Coast doesn't support an attack into Romania.
Yep. It's what we were saying about Turkey had to be worried about that move into Armenia, and as a result, Russia's position is relatively secure despite the Austrian seemingly turning on him.
Making weird moves, yeah. If Warsaw cuts Ukraine, then Galicia can still end up in Romania. But there certainly looks like there's some coordination between Austria and Germany, with Austria walking out of Berlin and Germany walking in.
I don't think so. I think the Austrian tried to bounce a German move to Silesia here, because combined with supporting Burgundy up to Ruhr, it looks like Austria is starting to work against the German here.
All this is because of that army build.
Yep.
That's a fleet. Austria has no reason to do this. Austria is quite secure in Munich. Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption, right? Yeah, because this is public press, right? There's nowhere that you can be supporting France into Ruhr without Germany knowing about it.
Yep. Yeah. And I think Germany outguessed the Austrian here and said, okay, you're probably going to bounce me in Silesia, so I'll just walk into Berlin behind you. Thank you for my home centre back. But that could still be a problem, because France probably has significant reason to support Munich up to Kiel here, or to at least help the Austrian get those SCs back. Make sure that
I think it's more likely he just takes Holland.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
But still bad news bears for Germany.
Yeah. Important to note, Germany didn't support the move into North Sea with his full strength, just with 2. Although it wouldn't have worked anyway, so I guess that's of minimal importance. And my thought was maybe he was trying to get the French on side and saying, okay, I won't go all out against you here, but yeah, might just as easily have been a misorder.
Yeah, my assumption would be a misorder. Just we've seen NMRs twice now from France,
Yep.
so I think yeah,
So if you didn't want to take North Sea, you probably wouldn't put any support on it at all, just in
right.
case. Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
like, and even still, it's just what's the upside to not supporting the attack in the North Sea with two? What do you want one unit support but not two?
Uh, I guess if they're trying to maneuver something up to protect Liverpool, no, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Um, no, yeah. What am I saying? If they were trying to maneuver something up to protect Liverpool, you would want to support them with three. So that's it. It goes. Yeah. Um.
So I think a misorder is just the only explanation here.
Yeah. All right. So, and Sweden to Skagerrak does put some pressure on the French, but in the area where the Frenchman is already pressured, so they're probably not too concerned about that just yet.
Yeah, and because of the worry about Kiel and Berlin, there's a very real chance Denmark ends up covering Kiel instead of breaking North Sea.
Yeah,
So
I think
this
that's
is
true.
this has gotten awkward. And again, man, like I think Austria would not have felt any of this pressure to be aggressive against you if that was the fleet in Kiel, right? If
Mm.
you built Fleet Berlin, then Austria's probably not worried about you taking Munich from him. For obvious reasons, you can't take Munich.
Do you not, as Austria, still want that build though? To be able to stick a build back in here and have two units in Germany instead of having to pull Bohemia back that earlier phase. Um, Because yeah, with the extra German fleet, you're probably unlikely to lose Berlin to Germany, but you still would quite
Warsaw
like
can
the
cover.
extra unit.
Yeah, but Warsaw can cover that. Like Warsaw, you can say just move Bohemia back, and then like I mean, okay. First of all, covering Berlin, I think was an important move from German. I think he was. I think that was also a significant mistake. Um, very easy to say after we saw Austria move in, but that happens a lot. And then I don't know, man. I think you can move Warsaw into Silesia and then tell the Austrian and the Russian, hey, as long as I have Warsaw, this unit is going to keep supporting Austria and Munich, and you guys don't have to worry about anything.
That
And then
makes
Austria
sense.
is free to move Bohemia south because he's not threatened. But him moving into Berlin is protecting Munich because it stops you from building an army there to take it. If he doesn't have to worry about losing Munich, then I think he is more comfortable sending Bohemia south.
That makes sense. Um, yeah. So we've heard lots of reasons for Germany building this fleet. I still think the army build is reasonable. Uh,
The army build is natural. Absolutely. It is like what you would want to have intrinsically. Just when Germany has one army and has lost Munich, it makes a lot of sense to want another army ever. And just whenever Germany has more fleets than armies, he's probably doing something wrong. And so building that army brings balance to your position. It's just this is not a normal game, and I think you want to have a very, very imbalanced position so that way your niche is very clearly written for the board to see when that's good for the people you want it to be good for, namely Austria.
yep.
So
Makes sense. It's a really interesting game in that way. Um, like,
yeah.
what else do we have to discuss here? I kind of there's one move here that's quite interesting that we haven't covered, which is Piedmont to Marseille. Um, France could obviously have put their unit in Tyroli, but they chose not to, presumably to keep the Austrian on side, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Probably was part of a deal of some sort.
It's also likely, I guess, maybe they got annoyed, with the German army hanging around in Burgundy for the entire last 10 years. Well, no, for a good part of the first 10 years of the game, maybe they were like, okay, I'm moving up into Ruhr, what if the Austrian goes back to Burgundy again?
I mean, it would have walked into Paris, so.
Yeah, that's true. That might have
I
been...
actually take it back. There's no way the Austrian asked for this. There's no way in hell, because he could have asked for Piedmont to cut Venice, and then Austria retakes Trieste.
Yes, that's
But
true.
that's not on the table anymore.
I mean, if the Austrian was trying to get the Italian on side, which seems to have been the purpose of these moves at home, you probably wouldn't want to ask the French player to cut Venice.
I agree, but this is so for negotiations. In the previous turn, he wanted to get Italy on side when it looked like he was making a move that was anti-Russian, right? But now that Russia has defended himself and he's not able to get anything from Russia, it's entirely plausible that he would then move back and go anti-Italian. So different circumstance, but I do think it's relatively unlikely that Austria is going to take Trieste. I think it's fun to note that again the Turkish position changed for twice. Like how many different? It's going to be fun to keep track of how many times the Turkish units move each game, because I think that fleet in Aegean has made like 2 moves, right? Out to Aegean, back to Caen, back to Aegean. So right, so only 2 moves.
Yep.
Like,
and now into Bulgaria. So
now it's back into Bulgaria, right? So it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah, we should at some point get. Well, I wonder if we could ask someone who's good with data at some point to put together a set of where these armies have moved and fleets and who's moved the most. But yes, Turkey would definitely be at the bottom of that table. These units have barely moved at all since the start of the game.
I could see Italy being below Turkey.
Actually, yes. I can see that too. Well, no, because Italy has moved a ton backwards and forwards in the same couple of spaces.
Yeah, Rome to Naples to Apulia to Rome, that's happened.
Yeah, but yes.
Right, let's see some more moves.
I agree. Let's go forward. We spent a long time on this phase.
Just doing some nonsense, dude.
And there goes Edinburgh. Wow, that took a while.
There goes Edinburgh. There goes Kiel.
There goes Holland. Ouch.
Yeah, man. Can't anymore. People want to cut you. Wow. Marseille back to Munich. Yeah, the French was traumatized. Okay. Sure.
So.
Yeah. So Germany is down to what? 2.
Germany has 3, I think. Warsaw, Berlin, and Denmark. But it's still only 1 home supply center. This is the lowest. I think this is the lowest number of centers they've been on all game.
Yeah.
And yeah, with that Austrian managing to walk into Kiel, you couldn't protect Holland, but you could have protected that one. That's quite painful.
I mean, the self-bounce in Prussia seems a little ambitious.
Yep.
It's like,
what's that even for? Why do you want to protect Prussia?
Silesia to Prussia, Munich to Silesia? That's what he's defending against? And I'm just like, okay, man. I'm kind of surprised that Austria didn't support himself into Warsaw.
Yes. I am too.
I think covering Vienna is a reasonable guess. I think that's totally fine, because Italy could have conceivably moved into Vienna. He's already taken 1 home center previously.
Yep.
So
that's true. And I have a feeling that not taking Warsaw is like the Austrian saying, "Okay, Russia, this is my goodwill
that's for
towards you. That's yours." Because if you look as well, the Austrians, since having maneuvered around Romania, suddenly every unit around Romania is support holding it. So he's just saying, okay, yeah, it's fine. Peace in our time. Trieste is supporting Serbia now as well. So the Italian is saying, okay, Austria, I like you now. But
although notably, the only way for Serbia to get taken was if Trieste supported Romania into Serbia because the Turkish units are both fleets.
Yes. So this is really just a like move thrown in for show.
Yeah, and I mean now we're back to looking at Germany, who has some tough disbands to make because he has
Yes.
Fleet Clyde, which is adjacent to Liverpool. He has Fleet North Sea, which is a fleet in the North Sea. And then he's got two armies that are both sitting on supply centers and a fleet in Denmark, which is also on a supply center. And you've got to take two of these off the board.
Okay, is this the
Yikes.
moment where you tell me that the correct play is
Both
to take
armies.
the two armies off and become a seafaring pirate? I
So
don't
let's
think
look
it
at which
is.
units have the most cohesion here, all right?
Yep.
So Denmark and Berlin can work together on Kiel, right? And then if you're taking Kiel, you might want to get Warsaw into Silesia, so then you can go for Munich again, right? That's like a pretty reasonable way to make a move for your home centers again, right?
Yep.
Alternatively, you've got Clyde and the North Sea, which can work together on Edinburgh. But France is building two, right?
Yes. Oh man, France suddenly becoming a bit of a threat again.
Yeah. And by building two, he's not losing Norwegian or anything else. So you're not really taking Edinburgh again. And English Channel can cover London while Fleet Brest covers English Channel. All right, I've changed my mind. Fleets are useless. We
Yeah.
need to keep Denmark, Berlin, and Warsaw. Clyde and North Sea, you've done your job well, but we needed to commit to you guys previously.
Yep.
It is too late.
Germany, you were supposed to go to Clyde in the spring. That is the time you go to Clyde.
Yeah, Clyde in the spring is a big deal. Once again, right? We
Yep.
talked about this last year, but it's the same deal this year. You don't want to lose Edinburgh in the fall with a
Yeah.
unit in it.
Okay, so one very quick thing we haven't mentioned here is Rome to Naples. Italy outright pulling that unit out of the defensive position against France, but previously they did try and rotate it around, but it got bounced by the Turk. So it does look like they might be committing against the Turk. Is that the right play?
If Italy wants to stay in the game, they want Turkey off the board. Turkey is the one with the best chance to cut Italy, especially now that Italy has taken Trieste. This ensures that the only two powers who can build fleets in the south are Italy and Turkey.
And
So if
France.
Turkey is gone, you need Italy.
Yep.
Or I suppose Russia can, but like Russia's a ways away.
Yes. France is the other danger here, though, and if they do walk into Rome, you've got some problems.
I do agree. The good news is if France takes Rome with Tyrrhenian Sea here, you can just retake it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because you can ask the Turk to cut Tyrrhenian. Either that or, like, you don't actually need to stand in Trieste anymore. Because if Austria really wants it, he's going to take it anyway. So you pull
Absolutely.
Venice back.
So in this case, you pull the fleet in Apulia, you move Venice back to Apulia, and then you move Trieste to Venice, and Rome can't bounce to Apulia because it's a fleet.
Yeah, so actually this is suddenly looking fairly, like, potentially terrible for the Turkey. If France supports Italy into the Ionian Sea here and Russia, Austria decide to work together, Turkey could be dead in a few years.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Italy, I'm supporting France into Ionian, just get him out of Tyrrhenian Sea.
Oh yeah, you demand that he goes in from Tyrrhenian Sea. That would make sense.
Yeah,
Although,
that's how, like, it's just a good rule of thumb that I have when I'm Italy. And there's a French fleet in Tyrrhenian Sea. I don't accept support anywhere. You got to make sure the French fleet gets out. It's my rule of thumb.
yeah, the danger, of course, is that then France has a unit past the Ionian Sea, and they only have 11 centers after this turn, but that still is a number of centers.
It's a number of centers, but I'm on 4 centers on the stalemate line. I have to play it close to the edge, right? And again, in the long run, the way that I get cut is Turkey cuts me, and if Turkey's out of the game, he can't cut me. So,
Yep.
And if we're cutting Turkey from this game, then Turkey is going to support France into the Ionian anyways. He's going to give it to him. So better that everyone can see and account for it ahead of time rather than doing it earlier. Or rather than
Yeah.
doing it surprise in the mid to late game when France is already at 16 and everyone thinks that they're fine.
Importantly, as you said, this would be on Italy's terms, so it would be France vacating the Tyrrhenian Sea. Whereas if Turkey is supporting France into the Ionian Sea, then they're going in from Tunis, yeah. Right.
Let's do it.
Shall we go to builds? And Germany.
Man, dude, this Germany is a little late, man. I feel like, dude, earlier, man. That's so sad to watch. Okay.
Okay, so what is Germany planning to do with these 3 fleets now? There's like, they have to fight for England, right? That's the only way they survive. Man. Oh, but maybe their plan is to, like, keep working with Russia and say, okay, Russia, please leave me alive in Warsaw. Austria, leave me the center in Berlin, and I can harass the French for you.
Problem is, Austria is not holding the stalemate line, right?
Yeah. Austria's gonna get knocked back.
Austria needs to get an army into Berlin in order to hold Kiel. Because Munich, like, Ruhr, Holland, and Burgundy will beat Munich and Kiel. Although, okay, if Denmark supports Kiel and Austria gets an army into Bohemia to support Munich, then, yeah.
There's a potential line there, yeah. So the French threat... Still, this is bold from the German. I mean, it's the kind of play I love to see because it's not something you get to commentate on often. But wow, just... I
feel like if this was your plan, then we needed the fleet. We needed the fleet in Berlin years ago, and we needed to get it out into the north, and then we would have beaten France when France was disbanding and getting weak. There was a moment, an opportunity, and instead I'm like, this is the sign of a man who is dying and is gonna just gasp as he dies, versus a man flexing his muscles as he marches on the weak France. I don't know. Well, not march, sails.
Yep. Gotta be pirates. And yeah, a lot of this could have been prevented as well, like even post the army build, if Edinburgh had gone to Clyde at some point and then taken Liverpool.
He's only losing one, yeah, absolutely. Or if he correctly guessed with Berlin, right?
It's so hard for, if they'd have bounced the Austrian out of Berlin, they'd be in great shape. If they're, well, not great shape, but like better shape. If they had gone to Liverpool, it's so hard for France to kick the fleet out of Liverpool in comparison to how easy it is for them to kick it out of Edinburgh. Yeah. I think this German has made a fair few mistakes, but it's so good to watch. It's so good to watch. So, the French builds, anything interesting to talk about there?
Fleet Brest is good. Army Marseille is whatever. Yeah. Probably don't want to build another southern fleet because that'll take off Italy, so...
Yeah, also, this France's fleet army composition previously was 6 fleets, 3 armies, which probably isn't ideal, even as France.
Not if you're looking to solo now.
Yeah.
I mean, here I was advocating for Germany to be 4-1, but hey. Do what you gotta do.
Okay, so let's go ahead to here, spring of 1915, and a German NMR. That's a good way for it to continue on.
But Norwegian Sea left, so Edinburgh is actually kind of exposed.
Yes.
Not really exposed. English Channel cuts North Sea, and North Atlantic cuts Clyde, but like, yeah, he needs to do that move now. And then London, Liverpool has a guess, right? Because North Sea could go to London, and Wales and Clyde can go to Liverpool, and Wales only covers one. Oh man.
I feel like this France is committing too heavily to England here. Because why would, like, yes, we always say if you want to attack or defend England, stick an army in there. But right now you have 4 armies and, like, so many fleets This is
Yeah,
not enough armies here. You want to be moving on the Austrian.
maybe. I don't. I'm so I his position would be stronger if he attacked the Austrian. Yes. He is he perhaps less likely to solo if he makes the move right now? Perhaps he wants to wait, make sure he cleans up these German fleets in the north, and then makes a move.
Right. Because then there's no German fleets left to. Well, there's barely any fleets left in the north to contest you. That
And
makes
you can
sense.
crush through Germany very quickly. You can like get into Helgoland Bight at your leisure and then make it work, right?
Right. Oh, and so this is what the French player was probably trying to do. If you look, if Germany had gone to Liverpool in this position, that fleet would be dead. Brest goes to Irish Sea. North Atlantic Ocean gets supported in by Wales, or the other way around. Edinburgh goes to Clyde, and you've taken the German fleet off the board. So even if the Russian and the Austrian are leaving these centres to try and harass you, you've still managed to destroy one of the incredibly annoying fleets at the back. But
Yep.
Germany's NMR actually prevents that plan from happening.
Yeah, and frankly, these fleets aren't doing much anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's the bigger deal, is because of this army in Wales, there's just not much issue. I mean, I think we looked at it and there's still, like, it's a guess for what does
Number.
Germany go for, and France can cover 2 of the 3 options.
Yep. But at the end of the day, that's only one centre, right?
That you can easily take back.
Yes.
So.
Okay. And yeah, I guess there must have been some agreement with Austria here as to. Well, no, they didn't have to be, I suppose, but I think there probably was as to not going into Ruhr and not putting pressure on him.
Presumably. And
Yeah.
that's why Austria self-bounced.
Yep.
If we look at the south, we see Italy accepting support into Ionian.
Yes.
Which
From
I don't get.
Apulia.
I don't understand.
Man. Yeah, there's a few interesting things going on here. So, important to note as well, Serbia tried to support the Italian unit in Trieste down to Albania, but the Italian did not take that support, meaning the Turk got it instead. The Italian does take the support into Ionian, but specifically from Apulia. So it looks like what the Italian is thinking is, I don't want to leave any of my centres uncovered, but I do want to make progress, which might not be the right mindset, because you're not going to make a ton of progress if you refuse to leave any of your centres uncovered.
And obnoxiously is forcing Turkey to retreat into Adriatic Sea.
Yes, which is painful, especially in conjunction with Vienna moving to Tyrolia here.
And Greece into Albania.
Yeah.
Right? You just...
That's just... Okay, so actually, maybe the Austrian being in Tyrolia is what you want, because you want to have some kind of defence here with the Austrian on side. But,
Yeah, I mean, Austria was already in Budapest and Serbia, so if Austria doesn't want you losing Trieste, you're not losing Trieste.
Yeah. And actually, Austria doesn't want you losing Trieste, because now you retreat to Vienna if you do. So, that's a good point. But... important to note, so it looks like this is part of some pitched attempt for Austria, Italy, France, and presumably Russia to attack the Turk, but Russia has not committed to it. Yeah. And
in fact, commits against it.
yes, goes the
leaves
other way.
Sevastopol, so there is no Russia, Italy, Austrian French alliance against Turkey.
Yes.
Not the most common, but
in this case, that would have been, I think, a death bell for Turkey if that had happened. But now, with this one difference where Ukraine goes to Galicia and Sevastopol goes to Ukraine, suddenly everything's coming up Turkey, I think. Because you've got army in Bulgaria as well. You made progress into Albania and into the Adriatic. That is progress, despite it being a retreat. suddenly everything seems to be in the Juggernaut's corner here. They can make moves.
Yeah, the only danger is if they look to cut Austria, I believe Austria can throw to France.
Okay, so Austria could throw Kiel, Munich, and probably Berlin as, yeah.
And probably Venice and Trieste as well, in short order.
I don't think
Army in
France has anything
Tyrolia.
close enough. Well, yes. It depends how fast you can take those Austrian units off the board, right?
Well, for starter, not particularly quickly, right? Like, Tyrolia is going to be there for a while. And Tyrolia is the important unit. But
Yep.
what you do is you say, all right, France, I'm going to take Berlin. I'll support you into Kiel. These moves happen. No one can stop it.
Yep.
Right. And then once you're in those, France builds army in Marseille. And then he says, I'll support you into Piedmont and then support you into Venice.
Yeah, and yes, that does make France incredibly dangerous. So yeah, I think the only way around this is just to get the Italian to agree to try and kill the Austrian as quickly as possible, right? But that's got to be something the Italian won't be too happy about with Turkish fleets in Adriatic and Albania.
What comes next?
Yep.
Soon you'll see what happens if Turkey controls the sea. I don't know, man. No, it didn't work. You haven't seen Hamilton, have you? Yeah. That one.
I have, yes.
Nice. Yeah, because it's just what comes next is Italy gets whatever.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I want to see some more. I want to see some more moves.
Okay. So let's go forward here into the fall of 1915. No NMRs this turn, thankfully. But what is going on here? So,
all right, fat lot of nothing. That's the summary.
okay,
nothing happened.
So
no one did anything.
In the north, importantly, France guesses correctly against the German, but the German doesn't lose anything, so I guess France doesn't make any progress. And Russia comes out.
Wales to Liverpool, right? Wales to Liverpool is actually a pretty big deal here.
Yes.
And English Channel into London, and now Mid-Atlantic and English Channel. There's a bunch more units on that front, so North Sea and Clyde are not long for the world.
At the same time, though, Russia is now in Norwegian Sea, and Germany has made progress into Heligoland Bight, which isn't a ton by itself, but it might counter that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure Heligoland Bight is an upgrade over Denmark.
Yeah, because Belgium can just support hold Holland, right?
Yeah, Belgium can. I mean,
you can force 3
that doesn't
down.
hold it. No, that's fair. That's true.
Yeah. So
Holland is now exposed.
It's a way to pull North Sea down, which is exactly what the Austrian tried to do this phase, but which wouldn't have worked.
If Belgium support held Holland, but I don't believe Belgium. Oh no, Belgium did. I'm sorry.
It did. It's
they're
just
so close together. I can't see the support on this image. Excuse me.
Yep.
That would have been funny though.
So that's kind of the side of the board where very little happened. On the other side, we have some interesting lack of moves.
Yeah, Galicia to Bohemia and Tyrolia to Vienna. Everything else held.
Yes, and importantly, the Turk did try to support Budapest into Trieste and Tyrolia into Venice, both of which would have worked if they tried them. Although the Italian unit would have been able to retreat to Vienna, so it's questionably good.
Right, just instead, like, accepting the Budapest into Trieste while Tyrolia covers Vienna, I think is the most,
sensible.
Would have been quite reasonable, but then Italy is still gonna make angry sounds.
Yes. Although I think it's actually quite going to Venice and such would have been fairly reasonable with this coalition against the French player in the north, because I think you can whittle Italy. Unlike the Austrian, they can die quite quickly.
If we're making that play, we could have done something cool. We could have had Galicia take Vienna while St. Petersburg moves to Finland or Livonia, and then St. Petersburg builds Fleet North Coast, and Austria still builds Budapest. I think that There was
Yeah,
a lot of merit to that line.
and that knocks Italy down to 2. Um,
Yeah,
but clearly Austria didn't feel comfortable with whatever plan was going on here.
and Austria instead said, "Nope, I'm sitting tight. Cool.
Galicia
All
to
right."
Bohemia is an interesting move. What's the purpose
I
of
don't
that?
know, man. He wants the unit closer to the Stalemate line. Like, Munich and Kiel aren't held, right? We know that they're not going to be held, and so more units over there is good units. Why
Yeah.
Bohemia instead of Silesia? I don't know, man.
Um, Probably so as not to threaten the German too much.
I mean, the German's already feeling threatened. What's he gonna do, right? His life is in your hands already.
That's true. Um, yeah. The only reason the German is alive is because Austria and Russia want them to contest this French threat. Um, so the only other movement we see here is Naples to Apulia. I think that Turkey is very slowly having progress made against them by the Italian, and the Italian moved out of Naples and Rome here. So that's leaving themselves pretty open to France if France wants to make that jump.
Yeah. Does France want to make that jump?
I don't
I
know
think
that
not
those.
yet is a
Yeah,
reasonable.
those centers don't seem very holdable. Um, at least for now. At some point they will be, I think, but right now you just want Italy to stay on this line and say, okay, trust me, work with me. So shall we go to the winter? I don't think there are any builds here.
There are no builds on this board. I don't
Okay.
even think a center changed hands.
Yeah, no centers changed hands, there's no builds, and this is spring 1916. I've moved on to, which has
Has some moves.
has four, five, six moves on the entire board, I think.
All right. So
No, there's a
notably, the
few.
ones that we care about: Liverpool to Clyde, Clyde to Edinburgh, Edinburgh to Yorkshire, Holland to Belgium, and Belgium to Picardy.
Okay, so, man, the reason you go Holland to Belgium, Belgium to Picardy is so that your army doesn't get blown up by this attempted attack on Holland, right?
And support Holland into Ruhr.
Yeah.
And you can retake. You have position on Holland again. You can't retake it, but you like. You
This
can't retake it.
this feels like mind games, right? Because this Russian army trying to go from Norway to Yorkshire is probably why all of this rotation stuff worked. Because they must have planned that in global, and then France goes, okay, I'll block the move to Yorkshire, or guess that they're going for this move to Yorkshire, and everything else worked. The move into Holland, I want to think, is something along the move out of Holland must be something along the same lines, but I'm not sure why you do that.
So yeah, here Austria and Russia said North Sea. You have options. You can either go into Holland, or you can support yourself into Edinburgh, or you can go into Yorkshire. There's your convoy to Yorkshire, right? Have your pick of one of these to do. I mean, if I'm in France's position here, I would probably have supported Edinburgh into the North Sea with 2 supports, while North Atlantic Ocean cuts Norwegian Sea.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You don't need all of the builds right now. You don't need all of the centers, but North Sea is a nice place to be, especially with this line around Norway, Skagerrak, Denmark being a little bit weaker than it once was. I think that would have been the right call. Yeah.
And then you block any convoy that North Sea tries to do. If North Sea goes into Holland, then it's not in Skagerrak, and then you can actually guarantee to move into Skagerrak, because there's not going to be anything like they would need to move Norway out and move Norwegian Sea into Norway, or have Helgoland Bight not support hold North Sea, like just
Yeah.
options that aren't going to happen. And oh, hold up, because this is public press, and because Russia has said, "Hey, I'm supporting Clyde into Edinburgh," you don't need to cut its support if you're going after the North Sea.
Yep,
You could do something else instead. You maybe still cut it just to be certain, but
that's true.
and
Yeah,
yeah, gotta have Belgium support hold Holland. No, maybe not. I don't know. Probably Belgium support hold Holland.
yeah.
I don't know. It could
Obviously,
go Holland to her.
obviously benefit of hindsight here, but I do think that would have been the right order set to enter even without the benefit of hindsight. That seems
Yeah, you can
correct.
have Burgundy tap Munich while Belgium supports Holland, because then if Munich goes to Ruhr to try to disband Army Holland, then we walk into Munich, which is a trade I'm okay with because there's no army in Silesia or Berlin. So we have a reasonable retreat into the east with that army,
Yep.
and then we're probably fine. Like,
Yes. Okay. So over here, big win for
in the
everyone
south,
not named France.
yeah, in the south, I mean, big win, yeah. In the south, Italy just like is happy because Turkey pulls back and nothing else happens.
Yes. So Italy holds position here, just saying, okay, I'll defend myself against France as long as you pull out, and Turkey keeps their word. And
I
everyone else
like
just stands.
I
So,
like the way that it looks on the site when Budapest supports Serbia and Serbia supports Budapest.
yep.
Just a solid line. I'm like, why are they? No one's moving, right? And then yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yep. So I was wrong
Right?
initially. There are 8 moves on this board total, which
Ooh,
it's well, and only less of those worked. But wait, no, there's 9. I'm so bad at counting.
well, there's the Ionian and Apulia south-bouncing in Naples, right? That's
Yeah.
2. Then you've got Venice, Adriatic, Albania, Liverpool, Clyde, Edinburgh, Belgium, Holland, and Norway.
Yep.
All ordered moves. I think that's 11 total moves ordered. Actual moves done, like Liverpool, Clyde, Edinburgh, Belgium, Holland, Venice, Adriatic, Albania, like 8.
Yeah. Okay.
That's actually a really high percentage of moves going through. Only 3 moves didn't.
And 2 of those were
Oh.
clearly meant not to go through, the
Yeah,
Apulia and Ionian ones. It's telling that no one is actually doing much conflict in the way of conflict here.
yeah, no one's doing anything. No one is
Yeah.
trying to stop anyone else from doing things except tactics in the north.
Yep.
All right, let's see some more tactics in the north, shall we?
Okay, let's go through to fall 1916 here. And we do see more tactics in the north, as you put it. The. Wait, is it the right call to back out of Kiel and Munich right now as Austria? It looks like Austria is trying to cut Italy, potentially.
Huh. Well, Germany's building.
Germany does manage to get a build. They get into Holland. They actually take French support out of Edinburgh. So they're suddenly starting to work with the French player right as Austria decides, okay, this is a safe time for me to leave Kiel.
Do we think that's them working together, or do we think that's France trying to mess with plans?
What plans could they have that would involve?
Edinburgh self-balancing in the North Sea with Hegel and Bite, while Kiel supports North Sea into Holland.
Yeah, but surely you only need one support then, right?
Surely. And also, you're taking Edinburgh anyways.
Yeah.
Maybe not. No, maybe not. Because of this, right, where Norwegian Sea cuts Clyde.
Yep. Um. So there was
Yeah,
a
probably only 2 supports, but then one support would have done the job. But, like, what's the other unit doing?
look. Edinburgh moving into North Sea in the first place just seems like a pro-French move, right? Unless, I guess it could be to try and block a single French move into the North Sea, but I think that it's pro-French, especially considering that France just backed out of Holland and Belgium, well, out of Holland anyway, and are now just leaving it open and saying, okay, Germany, have this, I'll support you back this way.
Okay, that's reasonable.
Do you think we're going to see another fleet build?
You've already got 3 fleets. Like, what's the army gonna do here?
Oh, God.
What's the point? What is the point of armies for Germany?
I mean, it's fair. It's fair. Like everything in my mind as the German in this position would be going army. This has to be an army. That's the natural pick. if you go fleet, what are you doing? You're just trying to get Sweden?
North Sea, North Sea, North Sea. Take the North Sea.
You're already in the North Sea.
Yeah, but we're not for long. There's, what, 4 French
There's
fleets adjacent
actually
to
only
it?
3 French
Oh, no, only
fleets.
3. Only 3.
Which is the same number of fleets you've got, but one of yours is cuttable, so yeah, you are losing that right now.
We need more fleets.
Alright. So it does seem like the German and the French probably working together here. Russia tries to get the army convoyed across into Clyde, which would have been very painful for the French if it had worked.
Also painful for the German, honestly. Germany wants there to be nothing in the north except for German fleets and French fleets. German fleets and French fleets.
Yes.
Just that's all he wants. Let's see some builds, eh?
Well, let's look at the south here. Is there...
Oh, we saw nothing. We saw Austria take Trieste.
Austria took Trieste, which almost certainly wasn't arranged. Especially with Austria covering Tyrolia to make sure no retreat up there happens. Well, no, not just to make sure no retreat up there happens, to threaten Venice, I think. To threaten with a move to Piedmont. So, Italy is in a tough spot again.
I mean, not really, but...
I mean, are they not? They haven't... If Austria gets into Piedmont here, they're gonna start being very
Italy pops
close to
Ionian and then says, France, you can take Ionian. I'll support Hold Venice for a while. And then sits in Rome, Apulia, and Venice, and then supports Hold Venice for years, and then Austria never breaks it. And then France can cut him whenever he feels like it, but France isn't going to feel like it for forever, so...
Yeah, and it's true that Austria is probably going to go... Well, I say Austria is going to go down centres, but this is the fall turn, so they actually get a build, I think.
Yep.
Let's move ahead to builds with that in mind. And Army Berlin. Okay. It's the right choice from my opinion.
My question that I asked in the last time I built an army is, why? What are we doing with this army? What does this army do that a fleet would not also do for us? If we get it into Kiel, it can pressure Ruhr. Okay, that's upside, I suppose.
It can also pressure Munich if you get another build.
Do we want that? Is that upside? Yeah. We saw what happened last time we threatened to get a build to put a second army in Munich. Austria stopped us from getting it. Right? There are times where you actively want to take away your options to make it clear to the rest of the board what it is you are doing. And then let them make use of that. This army in Berlin, if you haven't talked to France or to Austria and France, frankly, and been like, Austria, I'm going to help you into Ruhr. We're gonna break France here, which I don't see how that works. I don't know. Fleets have a clear game plan to me, right? I build fleets, I push them into the north, and we control the North Sea, we control the lowlands, and we try to fight for England. It's become significantly harder now than it was in years past. But if we lose the North Sea, I think we're just, I don't know. I just don't know what this army gets us.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Berlin is a long-term thing. Army Berlin. It's saying, okay, I'm gonna try and retake my home supply centers and get a place back on this board. Whereas a fleet is saying, well, it's also kind of a long-term thing, but it's saying, okay, I'm gonna make my home somewhere else and limit myself to being on 4 SCs for the rest of the game.
I don't agree with that. I think you can hold Kiel and Berlin. You've lost Munich. And that's fine. But there are games where you play as Russia, where you concede St. Petersburg, where you concede Sevastopol, and you just say, all right, fine, that's gone. I'm going to make my home elsewhere. I'm going to play a different game. It's rare you see that as anyone else, but occasionally you see France concede Marseille, very rarely. Occasionally you see Austria concede Trieste and say, I'm committing myself to pure armies. I think this was a line for Germany to concede Munich and just say, I'm building a bunch of fleets, and then...
Well,
make that display.
I guess we'll see how that works out for them. Italy... well, okay, so for the French build, the French disband is pro-German. That's something important to note here. It's not
Very
so
clear.
pro-German that it's taking a fleet off the north, but it is pro-German in that it's not threatening anything
Yeah, I
anymore.
mean this is adjacent to German center and German
Yes.
units, so it's got to be a pro-German disband.
And Venice coming off the board is pro-Austrian.
It's pro-survival. I think he thinks that getting a fleet into Adriatic Sea is more important than having the army in Venice. He wants to have two fleets still. I think that's
That
reasonable.
makes sense. You can still defend Venice with the support up, probably of Rome to Venice, but the downside to this now is there's nothing defending Piedmont. So Austria's next move will be Tyrolia to Piedmont, Vienna to Tyrolia with support from Trieste. You
Yeah,
don't even need the support from...
if you make it into Adriatic Sea, then you're still holding Venice. You
Yeah,
have to attack from Adriatic Sea. It's just, I think it's a nicer signal to France to say, "Hey, Ionian Sea is yours. Have at it."
yep. That's true. Okay, so yes, although Turkey is probably going to force the Ionian before France does it, we
If it probably would, but
let's
that's still what I'd say.
let's do power rankings real quick here. I think France is still very clearly in first place, right?
Yeah, France is going in first. Russia's still second. I mean,
I almost feel like Turkey could have pipped Russia for. I guess Russia has a build-in pocket with Warsaw whenever they want it, and they have a unit in Bohemia which is like free to manipulate the board however they want it to, whereas Turkey
yeah,
is
and
still
they've got a
stuck.
fleet in Norwegian Sea, right? And like they can
Yep,
do things I don't think Turkey can. I mean, Turkey's going to get into Ionian, but he was in Ionian for a long time and didn't do anything with it. And what's he going to do once he's in Ionian?
yep. Okay,
I don't
that's
know.
fair.
Like
Get stuck again.
we had Russia lower than Turkey in the past due to one, Turkey was on more centers at the time, was just in a stronger position before he lost, I believe, Romania. And did he lose Serbia even? I forget what the board looked like so many years ago.
I think
But there
he
was a
had
time,
Sevastopol and like Moscow at one point, which was
yeah, right. There was a time where we thought that Turkey was going to just eliminate Russia and then could never be eliminated himself. And then I forget how Turkey played it, but Turkey played it in such a fashion that he just got knocked back down. He lost all of his armies, and now he can't cut Russia, whereas previously he could, which is why we had Russia below Turkey. But
yeah.
that's
Okay,
not.
so we've got France, Russia, then Turkey. Our previous arrangement for the last three was Germany, then Austria, then Italy. I think Austria has risen quite clearly above Germany here.
Yep. I mean, he's taken two of his supply centers, so home supply centers, I should say, which makes
Yes.
it pretty difficult.
And Italy. Is Italy still in last place? Probably. Yes.
Yeah.
Despite the German. Like, this German position has been fantastic all the way through, but despite the Germans' position being like bad in an interesting way, the Italians' position is far worse here in terms of being eliminatable.
Yep. I
Uh,
agree.
right, so the only change here is those two swap over, Germany and Austria.
Like I
Uh,
said, I think we can start doing these power rankings once every 3 years,
yeah,
maybe.
well, yeah, that's what
But
we've been doing so far. Let's leave the last one
oh, we
until
haven't
the
done that
very.
every other. Yeah. Let's do the last one at the end. I agree.
Yep.
Great call.
Okay, so unless something very interesting happens,
But then we're gonna talk about it, man. These power rankings are not the most important
it's
thing. The most
true,
important
but
thing
look
is
how
our.
pretty they look.
Yeah, no, they're fine,
This
right? The
is
most important thing though is our bloviating about the topics.
yeah, okay. So I've
All right.
moved ahead to spring 1917 here.
Same. Nice.
And
Not NMR from the French player.
in okay, yeah, it's like a purposeful holding most things.
Have fun in Belgium. I think what happened is I think the French player put in the moves that he knew he was doing, right? Like I don't know why Turanian Sea to Tuscany is a move he knew he was doing, and then Tunis supports Western Mediterranean Sea. These seem like pretty reasonable moves. Why I'd support Edinburgh, but then the rest of it, he didn't know exactly what was happening with the rest of these units. Or it was just an agreement. He was like, you know what,
Yeah,
guys, take Berlin. I don't need that stupid center.
Belgium. Yeah, I think he's
Or
deliberately giving up a
that
center
one.
to Germany here. And Germany's taking it and saying, okay, I'm pulling Heligoland into North Sea, which is probably not what the French player wanted to see. Uh, and then we've got Russia attempting to support Berlin into Munich. Um,
Yeah, so if I was in the French position here with 3 units adjacent to Belgium and not doing anything, what I would have done is I would have had 1 unit support Holland into Belgium. Let's say that's Burgundy. While I have Picardy attack Belgium with support from English Channel. Then I do not cut the North Sea, because this says the only way you are taking Belgium is if you take it from Holland. Or flip it. I'd probably flip it, so have the North Sea support from the North Sea instead. And I say the only way that you take it is if you take it from the place where I want you to take it and not the other one.
yeah, so that's quite a lot to think through, but yes, it sounds like an interesting tactic. It's basically saying, okay, I'm going to bounce Belgium with 2 units, which means if you want to go in, you have to, well, actually, you would only want to send 1 unit then into Belgium, right?
Because there's Holland, you could say I'm with Burgundy. I'm going to support the North Sea into Belgium. You need to support that with your other unit, with in this case Holland, because
Gotcha.
I'm attacking with strength 2. You need strength 3 to get in.
Yes, so you put 2 units on Belgium, you say, okay, you're going to need my support to get in, so I dictate which unit you're going in with. That's smart. I like that play, but yes, clearly.
If you're conceding Belgium, I don't know why we're conceding Belgium. Sorry, I forgot to put that out there. But if we're conceding Belgium, which it looks like we're doing, let's do it on our terms, not however you would like.
Yes. And yeah, Germany gets into Kiel, and Austria gets into Berlin. I think this Russian support from Berlin to Munich, what it says to me is the Russians saying, Austria, you need to hold Munich, so you're not going to be attacking the Italian. But Austria just doesn't care and goes to Berlin anyway.
She says, bite me.
It's like, back in we go. And somehow Austria and Italy managed to make this up with Italy bouncing this move into Tuscany instead of defending Venice. And it paid
And
off.
Turkey not taking Ionian?
Yep. It's like super passive south here.
Yep. Cool.
I feel like Turkey
Let's keep
has
talking about Germany, man.
Yeah, okay. So Austria is getting back 2 units back into Germany here, and a third unit on the border of Germany. I think that's bad news for Germany, right? And again, it's probably because it was that army build, because I don't see the reason that Austria wants to take a bunch of German centers if it's all
No, I mean, you
fleets.
could have built from taking Venice, maybe. Or this turn played out, certainly. Tyrolia to Piedmont, Vienna to Tyrolia does end up with Venice. I assumed Ionian was going to Adriatic.
Yeah. I mean, is there much else to talk about here? I'm trying to think.
Oh, man.
There's so few moves on this board. It's like one
Yeah,
line.
there were lots of moves that France could have done, right? Like, France could have supported himself into Norwegian Sea and taken Norwegian Sea. He could have held Belgium. He could have done any number of things, and he just didn't. So, yeah, there are lots of things that France could have done, and I don't particularly want to sit through and look at all of them, because it's just ones he's had options of in the past, and he's going to have options of again. And so, yeah, he just says, I want there to be more chaos on the board.
I think it's basically France saying, okay, yeah, these, what is it, 9 centers, they're not part of this diplomacy board anymore. I'm not part of this diplomacy board anymore. You guys play over there, I'll just sit here until something interesting happens and I can make a move. And, I mean, maybe it'll work. Let's go ahead to fall 1917. And, yeah, we see that again.
Ooh, Turkey's in Trieste.
Turkey did somehow walk into Trieste at the same time as taking Austrian support into Romania. Oh,
and
boy.
getting into Iranian. Turkey's building too! Woo!
Turkey is building 2 and is now in Ionian Sea again. With 3 units on Adriatic. What?
Russia's taking Warsaw, while Germany took Kiel and Belgium, but also lost Berlin. So Germany's on 0.
Okay, and Germany voluntarily backs out of North Sea, important to note here, making, like, and doesn't even support himself in Belgium, so this is pretty clearly in agreement with France at this point.
Yeah, France and Germany are saying North Sea. No one wants that. It's pretty cold and big waves, right? No one wants to be in the North Sea.
Yep.
I
Uh,
guess.
so,
I mean, this holds Kiel, right? He's trying to stay alive.
yeah. Do we point out here there are 7 fleets on the North Sea and nobody in it? Nobody attempts to move into it. Wow.
Abnormal.
Um, but yeah, this is Germany, I guess, saying, okay, yeah, I need to make peace with France because there's no other way I'm gonna get my home centers back, right? With
France
the
decides he wants to risk getting bounced. No, there's no risk of getting bounced out of Tyrrhenian Sea. I was just noting, France could have had Tunis support whole Tyrrhenian Sea, Western man moved to Gulf of Leon, but there was no way this was equivalent,
yeah, this is
so
just
it's
him messing
irrelevant.
around, I guess.
I mean, he has a fleet in Gulf of Leon instead of in Western Med, right? And then Mid-Atlantic Ocean can go into Western Med and keep holding in the south.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, it is what it is.
it's the whole barricade off this side of the board thing. He does have to disband here because he lost Belgium, but I
Yeah,
imagine he just
probably
like
Mid-Atlantic Ocean.
disbands Army Clyde or something, or Fleet Edinburgh if he really wants to keep the army in the British Isles. Um, Actually, disbanding Army Clyde is a bad idea when you've got what is it now, a fleet composition of 7 fleets and 3 armies.
Yeah, and Clyde is a hard place to get a fleet, or to get an army into, excuse me, whereas Fleet Mid-Atlantic Ocean's pretty easy. If we
Yeah.
just take Belgium again, we have Fleet Mid-Atlantic Ocean back and no trouble, but Army Clyde
Okay.
takes a long time.
So that probably comes off. Okay, so other things to discuss here. Oh man.
I mean, Austria is supporting Turkey into Romania. Why? Probably
Yeah,
because last turn Russia supported Berlin into Munich. This ticked
probably.
the Austrian off.
It's like basically saying, yeah, okay, let's be part of this AT, and then Turkey walks into Trieste. uh, I wonder if I wonder if Turkey, like Austria, offered to Turkey to bounce Italy in Trieste in case Italy was going in there with Adriatic. But no, you've got to say that Austria would move Tyrolia or something instead. This,
Yeah. Is there a world where that's agreed? Is there a world where Austria says, you know what, Turkey, let's get you building two, get a fleet in Khan and an army in Ankara, and then take Black Sea and stop Sev from going to Armenia so you can take Sev? Probably not.
I mean, the nice thing about this for Austria is if Turkey gains complete control and only has fleets, you're fine, right?
Yeah, which is why you wouldn't ask for him to build army Ankara.
So I think if we saw something like Fleet Constantinople, Fleet Smyrna, or Fleet Ankara, Fleet Smyrna, then we can say they're probably working together.
What if it's Fleet Khan, Fleet Ankara? Because then Ankara goes to Armenia, while Khan goes to the Black Sea, and he takes Sevastopol with the fleet.
That's an option. Like that.
How
That
often do you
is
see Fleet Ankara as a build?
not very. Usually when everything else is covered.
I mean, yeah, like sometimes if you expect Russia to build Fleet Sev and you want to put two on Black Sea, you build Fleet Khan, Fleet Ankara, right? But
Yeah.
other than that, you never see go to Armenia. That'd be funny. All
Yep.
right.
And of course, Russia taking Warsaw off of Germany. I imagine that's retaliation for the seeing press about um, Germany
Taking the
and
North
France
Sea.
working together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I mean, if he expected there's a chance he loses Romania, which you could see here, this stops him from disbanding.
yes, and
And
actually, Germany wasn't going to get a build anyway, right? Because
because he's clogged, so
Yep.
I think it's possible this was just the thing that he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Yep. Okay. Well, let's move to builds there. It's going to be interesting to see what Turkey does with their
Two armies? Oh, baby.
It is.
Oh, Austria. Oh, no.
Austria may have made some errors here.
Yikes.
Munich comes off for Austria, which feels like the right choice.
He's saying, look, man, I got a hold.
And London comes off for France, which that one's totally reasonable because there's nothing in North Sea now, and you're
If
saying
we're not
okay, I'm
going
not
to North
threatening
Sea,
it.
what's the point of Fleet London?
Yeah. But man, these two Turkish armies. I mean, Turkey's just attacked both Russia and Austria, so I don't know that they can get their armies out fast enough to fight both of them at once.
I mean, I'm
So,
assuming now that Austria is gonna tell Russia, look, man. I mean, you saw the negotiations I had with Turkey. We had plans of long-term things against you, and I wanted to work with Turkey, and then Turkey decided to go screw it. So he's the one who's being more exploitive here than me. And frankly, Romania is an easier capture for you than any of my things. I'll help you into Bulgaria next.
yep.
But
That's
Turkey has the case. I could have built Fleet Khan, but I didn't. I want to work with you. Also
yeah.
a reasonable.
I think that's exactly what Turkey's got to be going for. It's got to be an alliance with Russia here, because there's no way you keep everything. You needed Fleet Black Sea if you were going to go against the Russian. Um,
Yeah,
so you say to the Russian, okay, I know I just attacked you, but now I'm going to throw myself at Austria, and then you hope the Russian sides with you. You've got to give
and
up
doesn't
Romania.
retake Romania.
Yeah, you have to give up Romania to him, and you have to somehow get your armies out without Romania being blown up.
But
That
Romania is getting
seems.
blown up. So I mean,
So you ask Russia to support hold Romania for a year and then push it out to Serbia, but that seems
maybe
bad.
saying yeah, support hold it in the spring and then in the fall, cut Budapest, and then I'll take Serbia.
Yeah, to I can see the reasoning for two armies being okay. I've had four fleets this whole game. They've done absolutely nothing. We need to get armies down, start moving. But you can't get these armies out of the homeland. It's the wrong time. If you
Yeah, I
really wanted
think
two armies, you had to wave one right here.
yeah, yeah. Just build army cons, go into Bulgaria, and be like, whatever. I mean, Austria's still going to attack you then.
Yep. But that way, at least you probably have the Russian, or you have a
Maybe.
better chance of having the Russian, I think, if you build
I
one army
think
than
if
if
you
you
do
build
that,
two.
I think then Russia moves Sevastopol to Armenia.
Oh, yeah,
If you
that's
only
the
build the one
downside.
army.
Okay, so what you really want here is for a fleet to be in Aegean so that you can convoy the second army out, but in that case, like,
What are we doing here, man?
yeah, in that, well, I love that that means that him taking Ionia in the first place was probably a mistake. But
If he's pushing against France and Austria,
if he's pushing, like, if,
against Austria and Russia, excuse me.
yeah,
Like, Ionian pushing against France and Austria and Russia at the same time is a mistake. So Ionian is probably just wrong.
yeah,
That's
Aegean
weird.
would have been better. The I think he should have built fleets here. The armies,
I think a fleet. I think Fleet Con Army Smyrna, right?
yeah, or like fleet
Or
anchor
don't take
army con.
or you
If
don't
you're
take
going,
Trieste and then you
well,
build like one thing and then you just work with Austria.
yes,
Probably an army then you pull Ionian back to Aegean and then into Con while Smyrna clogs up Armenia. And then yeah, I think that was gonna work better because this is Austria's gonna work against you now and you're not gonna hold.
and yeah, Russia is you have to place your trust in Russia, and Russia's going to attack you. The question is, like, will he stop at Romania and then start going into Austria, or will he not? Um, and the answer is probably, well, I guess we'll see, but it's not as good as it would have been if you'd have just stuck with Austria in the first place. Uh,
I don't know, man.
so, shall we go into spring 1917, 1918 here?
Let's see it.
Spring 1918, and Russia sticks with the Turk.
Sure.
Um,
Not particularly effectively sticking with the Turk,
so
as in they
it's
made
what
no
I was
progress.
saying before, right? With you want to give up Romania, but you let them keep it for 1 year. Well, for one phase, so that they can not have it blown up. I think what Russia is trying to do is make sure he has Sevastopol, Ukraine, Galicia ready to take that no matter what. Um, Although, like, the support into Budapest would have been great for the Russian here, because then he'd have had 4 units around
Yeah,
the.
and would have taken Budapest, whereas Turkey, as is, just lost Trieste and didn't gain anything else.
Yep.
Here, I could see a pretty reasonable argument for disbanding Trieste, because if Romania gets disbanded, you want to be able to build an army at home
Yep.
instead of not, and that fleet is not that good.
Yeah. The Italian is working with the Turk here. by the way, just trying to like reconfigure to go against the French, but Rome moving up to Venice means likely that the Turk is going to try and push the Italian into Trieste, or at least the Italian is
Yeah,
going to try and push
or at
the
least
Turk.
prevent an Austrian retreat into Venice.
Oh yeah, actually that would make far more sense.
Yeah,
um,
and we also see France working with Germany to help Germany back into their home centers.
yep,
And it's plausible that Berlin gets taken. If Bohemia taps Munich, then Berlin is probably relatively safe.
yeah. I
But
mean,
Helgoland bite back to Kiel this last turn is awkward because now you can't self bounce in Kiel.
hmm, yeah, and you potentially get cut in Munich. This is. So your best bet is to push Austria out of Berlin, right? Push Kiel into Berlin, and hope that Bohemia is too busy doing whatever to actually help on this side.
Maybe I would probably. Ugh, yeah, I have no idea. This is a tough tactical shot because if you self bounce in Kiel while Kiel just suddenly like move to the Baltic Sea, then if then France can't support hold Munich, and so Austria can just take Munich.
Yes.
Right. I think here you like publicly ask France for support hold in Munich, um, and then you do the self bounce in Kiel.
Yeah,
But then France can just take Belgium anyways. Yeah, I don't know, man.
it's
This is tough.
true. I think I would go for the push into Berlin still, and just
Yeah,
assume that the Austrian is going to be too busy fighting in the south to care.
and
Uh,
this way, even if Austria supports, like, if he's not taking Munich from you without French support.
yeah.
That's probably yeah. Kiel tapping Berlin is probably just correct, and then you throw a support in because why not?
Yep.
Okay,
And the
okay.
other things that happen in the north, we see Russia backing off here, France backing off as well. There's like a big demilitarization between everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, not quite, because there's a slight demilitarization. France hasn't actually demilitarized much at all,
yeah,
right? Mid-Atlantic Ocean to Western Med is the biggest, but Clyde is just as close to Norwegian Sea as Edinburgh, and the North Sea is not that the priority here.
yeah,
And Liverpool is fine. I don't know.
that's true. So France has backed off a bit without fully backing off. Right?
Yeah, but I
um,
mean, to be fair, Germany backed off away from the North Sea. Also, Helgoland bites now in Kiel, but Norwegian Sea is just as good as Norway. I don't know.
yeah. Okay.
Maybe not. Norwegian Sea doesn't mess with Edinburgh. Yeah, who knows, man?
Okay.
There's some nonsense.
So yeah. Okay. So the one thing I really want to look at again, even though we've already talked about it, is this Russian support double support hold on Galicia. I wonder if the Austrian was like publicly appealing for Turkey to support him into Galicia or something along those lines, and saying, I'll help you against the Russian if you do this, and something panicked the Russian into not taking this Turkish support. Um,
Yeah, the argument could have been if Turkey gets Smyrna into Armenia, then Galicia can cut Ukraine while Armenia supports Romania into Sevastopol, and
yes.
then he can get that capture. That's a danger if he loses Galicia and is not in Moscow.
I think if that was the case, then, well played by Austria in the public chat, although it's still a bad situation. Shall we go ahead to fall here?
Let's do it.
Okay, fall 1918. And Germany just vacates by going up to Denmark. No
I
pressure against
mean,
Berlin.
I would have gone Baltic Sea instead because then you border Berlin. But hey, do what
Yeah,
pleases you.
and you managed to negotiate that, that's fine. Uh, the Italian doesn't actually attack the Austrian anyway, but Austria is still in a bad spot because they lose Serbia here, presumably with the Russian Turkish still collaborating, and the Russian tried to push the German into Bohemia. What?
He probably just wanted Germany to tap Bohemia
Yeah, but why would you support that if it was tapped?
because then
Because,
because he knows that Germany's not going to, and this way he gets to say, "Hey, I supported you."
okay. I still think, like, that
Hmm?
seems... Well, yeah, okay. And, like, the support on that is actually bad for the German and good for the Austrian, right? Because if the
Oh
German
yeah.
did tap that and took the support and got in as a result, Germany's going, no, you made me not take Munich with my only army that can take Munich.
And it walked into Munich, man. That army. When you said what was the plan for that army, dude, this worked wonders.
Yep. Ended up being the right call, probably.
He ended up getting him a center, right? Which is quite good, right? You're really happy when a unit gets you a center by itself.
Yep. Um,
It's just
and
the right call is such a hard thing to say in diplomacy
yep.
because, like, okay, I'm gonna say if you solo, every decision you made in that game was perfect.
That's
That's the rule. And if you don't solo, where did you make your mistakes? And it's gonna be really hard to go back and figure it out.
all right.
Jeez.
So
So
there's
yeah, I
no.
mean, do we think Russia's gonna build Fleet 7?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, this looks like it was arranged taking Romania. Would you immediately stab Turkey after that?
If I
That.
get a fleet in the Black Sea, dude,
Okay, yeah, it's tactically very strong. It's more like, is this Russian player someone who will flip on a dime? And I think from.
not a chance. Given how long he's propped Germany up this
Yeah,
entire game,
that was exactly what I was going to mention. I think this Russia is a long term alliance player.
but he's
Although.
been in an alliance for 18 years. At some point, you're gonna have to stab, right?
That's
That's just
true.
like,
He's got all the decisions to make here, and Fleet Sevastopol could well be the right build. I think if we see a really conservative Army Moscow, I'm gonna be very sad. Uh, but I
well,
wouldn't
we've
be
only got
surprised.
80 more years of this meme.
That's true. Speaking of which, shall we get a move on and go into the builds? Um, here.
He waved. Tell me he didn't. Tell me something else happened, right? 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, he just waved.
He did wave.
Maybe he NMR'd. Maybe he NMR'd.
It's possible he animated, or it's possible that he didn't want to show his hand at this stage. But he hasn't got long left to show his hand because Austria is about to die. So if he wants support against the Turk, it really should have been now.
Yeah. I mean, he can prop up Austria for as long as he wants.
Yeah, but if he starts propping up Austria now, then he should have built Fleet Sevastopol.
I mean, probably, but
Okay.
I don't know, man.
So let's assume this juggernaut is continuing, and like Russia not building is a sign of that goodwill.
Bohemia, Silesia, Prussia. Let's go.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
And Ukraine to Galicia, and then you say, look, man, Germany, you've done your job, but from here, oh, probably their way to Sweden as well.
If you do that, though, you lose Scandinavia like immediately, because that's when France jumps back on, right?
Probably, but then there's these two German fleets in Holland and Belgium doing diddly squat, right?
That's true. I
No,
mean,
no, they don't. Denmark to. So here's one. You can't say this in all chat, right? This obviously needs to be an actual factual stab.
yes.
Where, because if Germany knows about this, then Denmark to Baltic, Holland to Helgoland Bight, and you tell France, hey France, go to North Sea, Norwegian Sea, Belgium to Holland,
Yep.
and then you're smoked. But given how demilitarized the North has been, I feel like you can set it up so that you take Berlin, and then you build Fleet St. Pete, North Coast again.
Yeah, but then you're fighting all these German fleets and all the French ones.
Well, there's not going to be that many German
yourself.
fleets for that long, because you are going to take Munich, because Germany can't hold Munich against all of your armies.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
probably, and then France probably is going to kill Belgium, Holland. He's probably going to take Norway from you as well, but he's just going to steamroll in the West.
I feel like it's actually more reasonable just to go with the conservative play and kill Austria while you're letting this whole northern situation stand as is, and saying, okay, if either of you attack me, then I'll help the other against you, kind of deal.
I guess.
But you're right that this is, if you were
and I'm not
jumping,
attacking.
if you were jumping Germany right now, it has to be right now because he's about to get Berlin back and get another build, and then he's kind of incredibly difficult to push in against.
Yep. And if I'm in the Juggernaut, right, if I'm not attacking Turkey, then I'm attacking Germany. Because there's not enough centers in Austria for everyone.
Yep. It's true.
So,
alright, well...
I mean, okay, this is different, right? This is obviously a very different game in that there's a 9-center France just waiting.
Yep.
So, maybe, yeah, you just need to not do anything ever. Because any aggressive play you make gives France a similarly aggressive play in the West. Yeah, maybe you just gotta be passive.
You need to, I think you need to, like, slowly grind out places until you're equal in power to that 9-center France and you can race them, but is that even possible? It's difficult. But yeah, Austria taking off Berlin, absolutely reasonable. It means he's got 4 units to defend his home centers this turn, well, this year, and, you know, what Austria is going to be trying to do here is get people to turn on each other. The more time he has to do that, the better. Fleet Greece coming off...
some moves, eh?
Fleet Greece coming off feels like the right call. It's not doing anything. It could have been Army Constantinople.
Ionia instead, but Fleet Greece is probably fine.
Yeah. Alright, let's see some moves. Spring 1919 French
Alright.
War.
I almost got there. Livonia to Prussia is a move that I would have done because I want to take Berlin.
Yeah.
Why Livonia to Warsaw?
Warsaw?
What? Okay. I mean, hey.
I mean, okay, so Bohemia, Galicia to Bohemia, I think without Prussia is anti-Austrian rather than anti-German.
Without words out of Silesia, I would agree.
Why the move to Silesia? It doesn't make sense. It's like...
To make it look anti-German.
So you're saying, hey, Austria, I'm really not attacking you here. Like,
I'm attacking Germany,
these are totally anti-German moves.
But then you should move Livonia into Prussia also. Because then it actually looks anti-German instead of
but then it looks too anti-German, and the German might think that you're anti.
It's
like I can imagine the Russian typing in all chat.
You attack Austria. That's like how this whole thing works.
I can imagine the Russian typing in all chat. Hey Austria, I'm moving to Cilicia. I've moved to Cilicia and Bohemia so that this is anti-German. Hey Germany, I've moved to Bohemia and Galicia, so this is anti-Austrian. I'm not actually attacking either of you, right? I'm just attacking the other one.
No, I'm attacking both of you. That's really what it is.
Man. Like, he could get away with attacking both if he'd gone to Prussia. But he can't now, so...
I mean, hey.
Yeah, and good defense.
There's going to be fleets in Helgoland Bight in the Baltic Sea, and, man, do I need to build another army now? I think so. I think I'm responsible for holding Munich now instead of letting the Austrian do it.
Yep.
Man, doesn't that just feel so bad? Like, wouldn't it be nice to just not have any of these armies on the board and make sure that Austria was the one responsible for holding Munich? Can we go back to that?
It's like, I preferred my position when I was in Edinburgh, Denmark, Moscow. I
really, like, seriously did. Because this German position is when Germany gets cut.
When Germany's just sitting in the middle waiting for people to squeeze them out, yeah.
Yeah, not attacking anyone, right?
But at the same time, I think it has better expansion potential, if it works. Because you can actually build, which is quite important.
We assume those 5 French units in the north actually aren't on the board. If they're going to NMR every turn for the next 3 years, okay, all right, I'll grant you. Problem is, those are going to attack us at some point, and we just don't have any recourse.
I really like it. Okay, so the last things to discuss on this board, obviously the attack against the Austrian didn't work because of some clever play here by the Austrian, cutting Serbia to make sure that, you know, you can't get into Budapest, although I don't know what the triple attack on Trieste was specifically to stop an Italian attack, which feels like it would have been, well, I guess maybe Turkey offered the Italian support there or something. The the thing I wanted to mention is there's a French NMR here. We haven't talked about the effects of that at all because it doesn't matter.
There are none.
This entire everything behind Tunis, Tyrrhenian Sea, Tuscany, Piedmont, Burgundy, Picardy, English Channel, London, Yorkshire, Edinburgh, maybe even Norwegian Sea here, has basically been cut off this board. It doesn't exist. It's just a looming threat that's like Cold War era. Imagine you had the United States in a diplomacy game just sitting there waiting to conquer Europe if the other side it got too disorganized. That's essentially what we've got here. It's such an interesting dynamic, and yet it leads to one player just NMRing for 4 years straight, essentially. They're not NMRing, they were backing off a bit for a while, but it's not something you'd see in a normal game.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay, but anyway, with that said, I don't think there's a lot more to talk about here, apart from that the Austrian looks a little bit screwed.
Sucks to be Austria right now.
Yep. Shall we move to fall?
Let's see it.
Okay. Fall 1919. And, yep, we see the backing off from
Austria
Russia.
lost Vienna.
Austria did lose Vienna. That's the only thing that happens here. Aside from Silesia and Warsaw moving back. So, yeah, I think it was that thing of, okay, I'm moving this way to look anti-German without being anti-German, but it very clearly wasn't
so
anti-German.
now Russia's got 2 builds, right? Because you waived one last year?
Yes. So, Fleet Sevastopol, please happen now. Is it even
After
a good
taking
move
Vienna?
now? Yeah,
Maybe.
It seems like at this point you want to waive it even longer and say, okay, yeah, Turkey, you're not getting any builds, so I can just wait and take a few more Austrian centers and then attack you.
Yeah, the problem is 2's getting Trieste, because that looks pretty Turkish.
Yeah, but the Italian has been trying to support hold Trieste constantly. The fact of the matter is that
So we
Austria has
take
been
Budapest
constantly
while
moving.
Vienna and Venice support hold Trieste. I feel like that's gonna tip our hand a little bit.
Just a little. Right. But yeah, not a lot else happening here. France is making some attempts to attack Italy at this point. And that's actually kind of... So that move Burgundy to Marseille is a little bit important. It's the most important thing France has done in a while.
And it's not very important, so...
Yeah, it's still not incredibly important, but it does mean they're going to mess with the south a little bit more.
Or they're gonna just support whole Burgundy. Like...
Yeah. Okay, that's...
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay, so, not a ton more to talk about here, really.
Let's just look at the builds, eh?
Yep. So, winter 1919, Germany finally owns the centres Germany is expected to have at the end of 1901. Well, with Belgium usually being a baby.
Germany's back and ready for action, baby.
Russia builds Fleet St. Petersburg south coast.
I mean, whatever, dude.
I mean, I guess it's just to protect Scandinavia, but why did you just move to Barents?
Because he talked to France, and France was like, I don't like you being in Norway. I'm moving out. I don't touch the North Sea either. You should move it away.
I mean...
Like my diplomacy? I think that's how I talk.
You should use that voice in more face-to-face games.
In what game?
In more face-to-face games.
Hi, I'm France. I think you should do really stupid things for you and really smart things for me. Eh?
That's
Great.
basically what people do in in face-to-face.
Oh,
so
great.
Right, so yeah, the most important thing about Norway moving back to Barents here is it can't cover Sweden. Fleet St. Petersburg South Coast seems to be doing that, but it's still one move away, so Germany can still just walk in.
Yeah, but you can do that while Barents moves to Norway, and then you force Germany to take Sweden while moving Kiel into Denmark, which makes it hard.
Yeah. Or while moving Holland into the North Sea.
That would do it too,
Yeah,
yeah.
we
But I
forgot
don't think
that.
he's allowed to move into the North Sea.
You
I think it's
forgot the
illegal.
North Sea existed, right? Because it moved
I
into
think the
that
North Sea's
zone.
illegal, man.
It moved into that zone of French control that nothing happens in.
Yeah, basically.
Alright. So Army Sevastopol as well, it's more committal than Army Moscow in the sense of it can move against Turkey, but it's not
But
Fleet
there's Army
Sevastopol.
Khan. Like,
Yeah. I mean, whatever the case, should we do power rankings right now, or should we do them at the end of next year when we finish?
let's see what this next year does, because, like, nothing's gonna happen, and I know it.
Okay. Let's move. Here we go. Spring 1920. It's the move into Armenia that we've all been waiting for. And the same time as Russia takes Budapest.
Yeah, and supports hold Trieste, but,
And Germany backs out of Denmark, doesn't even go for Sweden. Man. But he goes to Bohemia for some reason. Is that...
So I think there's an issue on the site. It says that Vienna support holding Trieste succeeds, but I don't believe it does because Trieste moves into Venice.
Yeah, that's the... So, a weird thing about Backstabber is that it only says that the support doesn't succeed when it gets cut. Which is... in the orders log anyway, but you all watching the video can't see the orders log because we handily cover it up with some power rankings.
Oh, that's great. I'd much rather see our stupid power rankings in the order logs.
Look, I'm sure you can figure out what's going on from the board with all this chaos. So, again, France just being France, he does actually go into Piedmont, which is kind of
a move. It is a relevant move of potential significance.
Especially with now the Austrian decides, okay, the only way I'm going to survive this is if I make a run for Italy, and go for Venice and hold there.
Looks pretty wise considering he just lost Budapest and Trieste, so now he's hoping.
So he's probably going to be down to one after this year, and that one is going to be Venice.
Probably.
But maybe
there's
the war...
Because Turkey ended up in Trieste, there's a chance that Austria can get Russian support into Trieste.
That's possible. Yeah. Also, I think the Austrian can definitely hold... Like, he can offer out his services to France here in some way. Either that or Italy. Yeah, because France is more happy with an Austrian Venice and an Italian Roman Naples than he is with 3 Italian centers there, right?
Maybe. So, counterpoint, Italy's been working with France for the last, 10 years?
Yeah, that's true.
12 years, 15 years. So it's reasonable to say, hey, Italy, I'm going to help you back into Venice.
Well, yeah, actually, these last few years, France has been, hammering on Italy's door. So, knocking on...
a little bit. Well,
at Rome.
Not really. He's, gone after Rome a couple times, and Naples support held Rome, and then nothing happened. I don't know, maybe.
Yep. But yeah, there's going to be an interesting dynamic here with the Russian attacking the Turk. Not in the most effective way.
Okay, Armenia to Syria, Sev to Armenia, Fleet Sev to build.
Beautiful.
Crush him. Not a chance any Turkey in the world ever survives that.
I would love that. Go Russia, do that. Make us proud.
Yeah, in the fall, don't go for a center.
To be fair, if they do go to Smyrna or Ankara and then backfill and actually get in, is far better, right? But
obviously.
But the thing about Syria is obviously it's not blockable. So that's the guaranteed moveset that puts you in an amazing position and is purely for position.
You're 100% to take at least 1 center next year. I'm pretty sure you're 100% to take 2. But it's probable that if they pull Ionian back to Aegean and Eastern Med or something that it can be messed with.
Yep.
but like I'm gonna take the 100% to go to be in a great place rather than the 50-50 to just not have any progress be made.
Uh, the yeah, okay, that makes sense because you have Galicia support. No, not Galicia, Budapest support and
Budapest.
Romania as well. Yeah,
Yep.
so that all works. You don't need to have Sevastopol do that. So I think we
Could
need
you
to.
imagine if Germany had moved into Prussia and Silesia this turn?
Oh, that would have been interesting.
I
The
mean, so this turn it still can. Bohemia to Galicia, Munich to Silesia, Berlin to Prussia.
yeah,
Let's go.
important to note. I don't think Russia and Germany have actually done any aggressive action towards each other like any time in the last 15 years, maybe.
Dude, I don't even know, man.
um, but yes, so the I think we need to apologize to the Russian here for saying that the time to do it was building Fleet Sevastopol last year because, well, this is pretty damn effective. And he's managed to get Budapest and Vienna out of it. Uh, let's move forward to fall
Yeah, we'll
1920.
see how long it stays, because I would expect at some point Vienna and Budapest to be attacked. But
Yes, but of course, Fleet Trieste is not very useful for attacking Vienna and Budapest. The interesting thing here is going to be to see whether Germany supports Tyrolia into Vienna, I think.
sure.
But again, with Germany backing out of Denmark, you think that he's probably not being that aggressive towards the Russian. Let's go ahead to fall of 2020. We're not quite there yet.
Whoa.
1920.
Austria did not accept support into Venice. Okay, this was weird. These moves were weird. So, Russia with Vienna did support Venice into Trieste. Right?
Yep.
That support was accepted. But then France offered to support Tyrolia into Venice. Which.
Instead of doing that, Tyrolia tried to support Burgundy into Munich.
Which would have. No, it could not have worked because Bohemia kicked out Tyrolia.
Yeah.
So there was no support that would have mattered there. But it's odd because the French support and Russian support, they could have had Piedmont support Venice, Venice and Vienna support Tyrolia into Trieste.
Yeah.
And then if Adriatic supports Trieste, it's still fine because Apulia cuts Venice.
Yeah.
So they did the attack from Venice so that if they cut Venice, it didn't matter.
But then he should have taken the support down as Venice. Yeah, now he's on one center, which is not great. But he does have.
He'd probably rather have Venice.
He does have an apparent ally in the Russian. I don't know what Germany is.
His apparent ally is sitting in 2 of his home centers.
Yes.
So I don't know how much of an apparent ally this is.
That's kind of a forced alliance at that point, right? But at least you got someone working with you, and there's no army in Venice to try and push into Trieste. But actually, you want the army in Venice so that you have something support holding Trieste. Okay, so 2 other things to point out here. Clearly, 3 other things to point out. Clearly, no aggression between France, Germany, Russia still. Russia did make the correct moves with going into Armenia and Syria.
No, it's terrible. You should go to Ankara. Horrible choice. Just get the 50-50 right.
The single most important thing that happened on this board, for the first time since we started this broadcast, 2 and 3/4 hours ago, France has moved forward a space.
Yeah.
They got into Ionian Sea. And they are looking likely to take more from that because of the whole disarray this entire area is in.
Yeah, I mean, Turkey is building, right? Because Turkey didn't lose any centers this turn, but had Trieste get disbanded.
Yeah, which is bad for the Russian.
Really bad, because that fleet's going to go and corner Ankara and bounce them out of the Black Sea.
Yep.
And because the Ionian's back in Aegean, actually, this is how you stop this attack. because Trieste got disbanded.
Yeah. So, bad news for the Russian, good news for the French is where this is going. Although I don't think it's like solo-worthy news for the French because Germany has a presence now. And
Germany has a presence now, and France has only 4 units in the north.
Yep.
Right? France actually can't force the North Sea anymore. And London, the Army of London is doing very little without a fleet in the north. And there's only 2 units adjacent to Belgium, so Holland can support whole Belgium, and like France doesn't have any potential attack. Literally just nothing France can do in the north.
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
in the south, he might get Rome, right? That's the big news about him getting into Ionian.
Yes. But again, yeah, you're right. It's not as big news as I made it sound. It's just kind of news in that France is doing something, right?
Yeah, France moved forward. Yes.
Yes. Like, if I had to guess how this would end without knowing, from this position, I would say it's kind of the really unusual cousin of the usual, like, Italy, Austria, Russia alliance that happens, where they wipe out Turkey and then cross the board, and then because if one of them stabs Austria, the other one will get thrown to, they just end the game in this sort of weird equilibrium. I think this France, Germany, Russia might be this same thing.
Yeah, I think France, Germany, Russia 3-way is totally viable here.
Yep. And the reason Germany survives is that if either power attacks them, they just throw to the other.
Yeah. And Germany is big enough at 6 centers that is viable. If Germany was a little bit smaller, right, if Germany only had their home centers, then you can see this game become a 2-way, just on the more natural stalemate line.
I don't know about that. That seems like I don't think there's an 18... There's a 17-17 stalemate line that goes, like, that way. I mean, is there? Maybe there is. This is another thing to ask the commenters.
Yeah, I mean, so what has to happen is that France and Russia find some way for Russia to kill Turkey in the south, and then France takes Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Right, and like again, because Germany's on 6 centers, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to be viable. But if Germany loses the lowlands and Denmark, then it can totally happen. The key is that France would need to back out of Italy, and Russia would need to back out of Scandinavia.
Right.
And if anyone did this, but the other one doesn't, and they execute the stab effectively, then they solo, which makes it really hard.
Yes. Which is exactly why you can't do it when
9
Germany
centers.
has.
Sorry?
Which is exactly why you can't do this when Germany is just a tad stronger, right?
Yeah, it's like you need Germany to be at like 9 centers while you are making these trades. Because that way you can't stab the other and get a solo yourself, because Germany is enough to balance to stop the solo. But then you need to be able to thin Germany and stop him from throwing. Yes. Which is just super awkward. You need to have, like, what would be ideal is if Germany had like 1 unit sitting around just like picking up centers, but he lost all of his home centers, because then he can have a bunch of centers in a bank, but he can't do anything with them.
Yes.
That would be the dream.
But also, in that case, Germany probably wouldn't play along, because they know that they're only taking those centers to balance themselves getting cut out of the draw.
Absolutely, right. It's completely, it would never work.
So, in a more realistic sense, I think this game would, if I had to predict how this game would end without knowing that it goes for a ridiculously longer amount of time, I would say Turkey, Italy, and Austria all get cut, and then it gets drawn. I don't see how it's not going to end with that, with Austria on 1 supply center in Trieste, Italy on 3, but now having
the answer
France.
Is that it doesn't happen like that.
Yep.
Something goes awry. France decides he doesn't want to eliminate Italy because he thinks that's the way that he solos. Italy decides he doesn't want to see Austria go, because if Austria goes, he gets cut. Russia decides he doesn't want to kill Austria because he wants to kill Turkey first, and he wants the Austrian army in Trieste to help him. Maybe he, instead of supporting Austria into Serbia. He accepts support into Serbia, and then Austria finds a way to wiggle himself back into Budapest or Vienna, and then he builds. Like,
Ooh.
because we know this game goes on forever, there's lots of nonsense that has to happen.
But moving on to winter 1920 here, we do see Fleet Sevastopol build as predicted, Army Ankara, which is probably less
Nice.
good than... Well, no, Army Ankara is just to hold Smyrna for... Actually, that's really bad. You want Fleet.
That looks awful,
Yeah.
because that was in the Black Sea.
Ouch. That's a mistake.
Like, I know you just said it's really hard to say, like, mistakes and what's not a mistake in these types of games, but, like, this feels like one of those times.
Yeah.
Okay, Fleet Ankara doesn't support Hold Smyrna, right?
Yeah, but Aegean can support hold Smyrna, so...
I agree.
Yeah, I don't like this build. And I do like the Russian build. I like the Russian build even more now.
Yeah, the Russian build looks genius.
Yes. So, those are the only two things on this board, and talking about all of this excitement that could happen, we do have to end it there. This is the last phase that we will be commentating, and of course we will be doing power rankings here.
This session, we're coming back. We're not done here.
Oh,
We're going.
for
We got
sure.
many more years to go through.
We have so many more sessions.
Oh, good God.
Oh boy. This is gonna be a long haul. But
We're just gonna start doing less commentary for nonsensical. Like when nothing happens, right? We can talk less about it.
yes, we do probably talk too much about nothing on this show. But hey, you all stick around, so thank you.
Yeah, that's just they fall asleep.
Just listen to our
Right?
voices.
They wait. They stay for 20 minutes, and then when we're talking about things that aren't diplomas, that aren't about this game, people stay, and then as soon as they're talking about the game, everyone falls asleep, and they just stick around for the rest.
I do think there's been some pretty interesting things in this, but this one in particular has been kind of slow because of this looming French threat for the entire thing. Everyone's too scared to do things. But yes,
Yeah.
So let's see our power rankings. I think it's fair to say that Austria is now not in third last, they are officially in last place.
Yeah.
Um,
If they were still in Venice, I could see an argument for them to be second to last, but they're not.
Because then Italy would be very easy to cut, right?
Yeah.
But I think Italy is safely above them. I think it's fair to say that Germany is probably above Turkey at this point. Well, definitely above Turkey at this point, right?
Sorry? Germany's above Turkey at this point?
Germany has...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's probably France still in first, Russia still in second, Germany in third, then Turkey, Italy, Austria. Which is just center order again. Why does it always just end up being center order?
Because turns out having more units on the board means you can do more things.
Yeah, this is true. So, yeah, there you have it. That's our power rankings for this phase. I'm wondering if there's any chance at all that Russia is ahead of France.
Nope.
No. I mean,
Nope.
They do have more expansion potential, right?
Yeah, but that's only because France has said he doesn't want it. Like, France convoys London to Picardy, and then Belgium gets captured.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Gotcha.
France is an Ionian. No, this is, like, don't get me wrong. Russia's doing a lot better, but, like, France can have whatever he wants in the north whenever he wants it, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, no, not whatever he wants. He can specifically have Belgium when he wants it, and that's important.
Yep. And he can, like, walk into North Sea and Norwegian, which will be enough to take Norway as long as Russia doesn't move into Sweden here.
Yeah, which looks like that's their demilitarized zone. And I mean, France also has Burgundy still, and so Burgundy can walk into Ruhr whenever he wants, which is also very punishing.
Especially if he combines that with builds from Rome and Naples, yeah. So it's gonna
I mean, if he's combining it with builds, I would expect more just Piedmont to Marseille, while Burgundy goes to Ruhr in the spring, and then in the fall, and convoy into Picardy, of course. because then you get to support Picardy into Belgium while Marseille covers Burgundy and Ruhr taps Holland.
Yes. Okay. So, before we sign off for this one, we do have our power rankings there in order. Oh, I forgot to say at the start of the episode, I was corrected on web diplomacy as to the identity of one of these players. Ibadabam was not the player who started out playing Turkey, but I do not remember who they said the player who started out playing Turkey was. So, it was someone who wasn't that. But he was the guy who ended up playing Turkey in the end of it. The other thing I wanted to mention here, the thing I'm most interested to see is probably what these 3 German units in the middle do. Because I think they have the potential to change the game if they decide to go anti-Russia, if they decide to, I don't know, since there's a lot of powers here, and it's not immediately obvious what Germany is doing, I think that will have a big impact on what happens coming up. But, yeah. Aside from that, I think we're going to leave it there, as long as you're all done as well, Ezio.
Sounds good to me.
Alright, and we will see you next time then, as long as you haven't gotten completely bored by the lack of French movement.